There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. This is a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right. Channel 1 Atlanta. From the Broadcast Center in Atlanta, good evening. I'm David Dutton in the Channel 1 Atlanta Command Center. We're bringing you continuing coverage now of Hurricane Milton as it makes its way into and across the state of Florida this evening. We're expecting a Category 3 at landfall, winds of around 120 to 130 miles per hour. Currently, right now, that's what we have, a Category 3 with winds of around 120 miles per hour. We're expecting the storm to move into and across the area, making landfall around midnight this evening. It's just before 7 o'clock Eastern time. And again, we're live from Atlanta. Thank you for joining us for continuing coverage of Hurricane Milton this evening. I'm going to be bringing you, as always, when we cover breaking news and weather, information from local affiliates and local stations in the area, including WFTV and other TV stations across Tampa, Orlando, and Daytona Beach this evening. And so we can show you how the storm is affecting the local area there. Our live team coverage continues on this life-threatening weather event as we go now to WFTS in Tampa, Florida.
Add Sarasota County into the extreme wind warning because the strongest part of these winds, like we were talking about a second ago, are associated here on the northern side of the eye wall. So we're looking at also some surge values picking up. Naples is now seeing major flooding. So the surge is picking up south, and it's probably going to start picking up here along our coast, especially Manatee, Sarasota counties, maybe perhaps even in the southern bay as well. But yeah, right now we're seeing those winds really begin to crank up, with the strongest being at about 77 to 74. Venice is updated now to 74 miles per hour. Brooksville also 66 miles per hour. So So even our northern spots are beginning to see these strong tropical storm force winds with gusts now approaching hurricane force. And looking at some of the current gusts, I think you did show this one, Dennis, but yeah, it did show earlier that we had some 70-mile-per-hour gusts. Looks like now we're all in the ballpark of very strong tropical storm force winds. And that extreme wind warning, like I'd mentioned a second ago, it looks like they are not going to extend it south into Sarasota County. So if there is any good news, it would be for those of you in Sarasota County right now, where it looks like this goes right to the Manatee-Sarasota County line, but they're not going, the National Weather Service is not going to extend it a little farther south. And we were just showing you this a second ago, but if you did miss it, let me turn off the warnings here on this map and show you what we're looking at as far as the potential for these winds, how strong the winds are inside this eye wall. So turning the warnings off, I'm going to switch it back over here to our velocity mode. So we're going to turn off the rain. We're going to look at what direction the raindrops are moving in the wind mode to see exactly what we're looking at as far as how strong these winds are. And we're looking at sustained winds of a couple thousand feet up. So not what we would see here at the ground level. Over 100 miles per hour, some as high as 124 to 125 miles per hour. So when you're looking at this and you're saying, well, why isn't Sarasota being included if the eye could potentially move on shore here? It's because, again, the northern eye wall is where we're seeing the strongest part of the winds. And with a northeasterly movement on shore here over the next 2 hours, that's going to take the northern eye wall into St. Pete, into potentially Tampa, and also through southern Hillsborough County, into Bradenton, and also places east of there over toward Lakewood Ranch along 64 and 70. So that's what we're looking at right now. So that's the wind mode. There's clearly where the center of the eye is. Out ahead of it, these winds in these blue and purple shades are showing up at about 70 to 100 miles per hour. So we're still going to get some pretty strong winds, but the more concentrated and more likely areas that will continue to pile up these 100+ mile per hour wind gusts are going to be within this northern band. So let me stop the radar. We'll do a little query tool and look inside and see exactly where the strongest winds are. Where you see the orangish brown colors, those are starting to move into Egmont Channel and also here through Anna Maria Island and Fort DeSoto, getting basically into the mouth of Tampa Bay. So looking at some of these numbers here in these darker shades of brown, we're looking at 100 miles per hour. Again, this is about 1,000, 2,000 feet up, so take about 10 miles per hour off of that. We've got 90 mile per hour gusts here at the surface. We're looking at
this is a tornado warning.
on shore. And again, as far as the direction of movement with this, we're talking about it moving more to the east-northeast, which would affect, of course, where they put that extreme wind warning, which is Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee County. So there's the band. Notice the northern side of this band now creeping into southern Pinellas County, and we're going to continue to see this shifting east-northeast. So basically along the I-4 corridor and to the south is where we're likely going to see this band pushing those winds over 100. One of my friends in Carrollwood already texted me up toward Lake Magdalene saying the winds are crazy out there already. They can't imagine what it's going to be like when the eye wall starts to move onshore and closer to them. So again, we're locked in with this northern eye wall, which is actually being a little more of a worse part of the storm than what the actual landfall location will be. And based on the last couple of trends, it looks like it's made a little bit of a wobble, right? We don't want to put too much stock into it, but if this trend continues, the landfall, the center, could be here in Sarasota County, but the strongest winds associated with it may not be directly around that eye wall. It's in the northern part, and that's why the National Weather Service issued that high wind warning or extreme wind warning here for Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee County. So again, we're watching this very closely for you as far as this goes until 9:30 tonight. We could see it extended inland. Of course, the storm will begin to weaken quite a bit once it gets out of the Gulf of Mexico, but heads up for you in Lakeland, heads up for you in Hardee counties, because you all could see an extension of this to the east as we see this northern eye wall continue to move to the east over the next couple of hours. Anything else? Oh, okay. So yeah, we're continuing to watch that for you here as it shifts off to the east. The good news, though, I haven't seen any spin with this as far as any tornado risks go. It's one thing to worry about 100-mile-per-hour winds. It's another thing when you have to throw in a mix of those stronger winds. So yeah, we're going to continue to watch this for you. Also watching where that rain sets up the heaviest. We've seen anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain already. Got another 6 to 8 inches to go before we see this winding down. A bullseye showing up here for Citrus and Hernando County. So while you all are well removed from the eye, moving into Sarasota and Manatee counties in southern Pinellas and Hillsborough, the extreme rain rates are going to be here from I-4 north. So strongest winds along and south of I-4, extreme rain rates north of I-4 along and north. And this is where we could see some totals exceeding a foot, maybe even getting up to around 1.5 feet of rainfall. So that's where we're at right now with this. We're going to really have to pay attention closely to this extreme wind warning to see if we start getting some of these observations coming in over the next couple of hours. Greg, have you seen anything?
I haven't. We were just talking with Dennis. He does not remember a time when we've ever been under this.
Correct. So I did talk to my National Weather Service friend, and this would be the first time Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee counties have been put under an extreme wind warning. They started this, about 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. So it's not something that's been around for hundreds of years. But yeah, it's the first time that we have seen this here in Pinellas, Manatee, and Hillsborough County. Sarasota County, your first time being in one was when Hurricane Ian rolled through, and you guys were in the northern eye wall at that point. So a very similar situation here with the northern eye wall being obviously north of the eye of the center. And we're seeing the worst of the winds and the extreme winds here potentially versus it being around the actual eye itself. So let me turn the flash flood warnings off. We are going to continue to watch this for you as we go over the next hour to hour and a half. Again, this is basically being treated as a tornado warning. What we do during tornado warnings, if they are threatening a major metro area, is we would cover it until the threat passes. And that's what we're going to have to do right here, because again, you may not see another extreme wind warning for another decade, 2 decades. Let's hopefully we don't have another one for another 100 years, right? But this is very, very serious, and this is where the power outages are going to start to come into play. So make sure, like Dennis said, you've got your cell phone charged, you've got our ABC Action News app downloaded to your phone, because that will continue to allow you to see our coverage should you lose power, and of course you're unable to watch us on TV anymore. But this is the bad part. This is the part that we were hoping would nudge south, nudge north, just something to get it out of our beautiful Tampa Bay area. And unfortunately, it's coming right into Tampa Bay. This will definitely go down as one of the strongest hurricanes on record for our area, and clearly the strongest we've had in about 103, 104 years since the 1921 Tarpon Springs hurricane. So there's the warning again. I do want to remove that warning because I really want to focus in here now on some of these bands coming on shore. Clearly, you can see the eye. And the outer eye wall, there were 2 eye walls if you were with us earlier today. Those have already moved into Manatee and Sarasota counties. That's why we're seeing more gusts showing up at 70 miles per hour plus 80 miles per hour, getting closer and closer to that. MacDill Air Force Base, we just gusted to 60 miles per hour. Brooksville, 66. Even in Winter Haven, far east of the center, we have a wind gust to 58 miles per hour. We're at 60 down toward Fort Myers. St. Pete, another gust to 66. And we're looking at let's see, Venice gusting to 62 within the last hour or so. So again, extreme strong winds coming in, but the strongest are going to be right around the core of the eye. So in Sarasota County, you may be the landfall point when you're looking at the center. Again, the center of the eye where it comes on shore is the landfall point. This could be Siesta Key, it could be Turtle Beach, Osprey, maybe Venice, or it could be as far north as Lido Key, maybe even the southern part of Longboat Key, depending on how much to the north and east. And yes, there are extreme winds in this as well, but where the strongest winds are within this band here. So let's focus in now on Tampa and St. Pete. Look at the red colors over top of us, guys. This is 4 to 6 inch rainfall rates per hour, on top of the fact that we have the chance for 100+ mile per hour winds to move in within this band. Notice it's not moving at all. This is a stationary band as the eye is beginning to move closer and closer on shore. So we are literally covered up from north to south in Pinellas County, whether you are in Palm Harbor, whether you're in Tarpon Springs, down through Dunedin, Clearwater Beach, Indian Rocks Beach, Bel Air Shores, down to Madeira Beach and Treasure Island, Johns Pass, south to Paso Grill. We are covered up right now in the worst of the storm, and the winds are just beginning to pick back up. We are looking at Tampa being basically in the same thing. We are not in the strongest part of the northern eye wall just yet here in the city of Tampa, but our extreme rainfall rates continue here as well. New flash flood warnings have been issued. Again, when we talk about how much we've seen so far, 6 to 8 inches of rainfall is where we're at this point. Widening out the picture, Lakeland, you guys are back into the heavier rain. And again, I want you to be prepared for those of you in Polk County, because that extreme wind warning may be extended farther east within the next hour to hour and a half as this comes on shore, because you will be in the northern eye wall here as well, especially south of I-4. So places like Bartow, Medulla, down toward Fort Meade. This is where along 17 we're going to likely potentially see this warning extended a bit farther east. In Manatee County, you are no longer now in the eye wall. It's shifted north. But look to your west. This part of the eye wall, the northwestern part of the eye wall, is ever so slowly creeping closer and closer to Anna Maria and Longboat. This is going to be the worst part of the eye wall for you all as well. Again, in the northwestern eye wall, this is where we're looking at the strongest winds at this point, and they're picking up to around 100 plus miles per hour. So ladies, this is what we've got right now. Extreme wind warning until 9:30. Dennis is here. We're going to take a quick break, send it over to you guys. And what's the very latest that you have as far as power outages go? Because I know they've got to be starting to creep up now.
Yeah, Jason, Wendy and I have been looking at FPL, Duke, and TECO, and I do want to start with TECO seeing nearly 45,000 power outages at this point. FPL still hovering around that 8,000 in Manatee County.
Right, and Duke Energy now at 51,000, most in Pinellas County. So obviously there's a big issue there, and it's only going to get worse, as we know, because the winds are going to pick up. More power outages will be across the Bay Area. And almost immediately after we heard our phones ring for that alarm, for that extreme wind warning, we started getting notifications from several counties that first responders are now being pulled from the road for their own safety, including Sarasota, Clearwater Police and Fire, Pinellas County, the city of St. Pete, and Pasco County. They say they just can no longer respond west of the Suncoast Parkway for their own safety. And here's an important reminder. We want you to be able to reach us 24/7 during and after Hurricane Milton. Just scan that QR code on your screen to download our apps. And this way you can stay connected to us even if you lose your power or signal, and watch us on your phone. And please charge your phone right now before you lose your power.
Truly, if you're one of the lucky ones who still has power at this point.
Yes.
So to download our apps, take out your cell phone and go to your app store, search ABC Action News, click on the download. And once you're in the ABC Action News app, you'll see our live feed at the top of the homepage. It's exactly what we're showing right now, so you can still watch us there on your phone. Now, Pinellas County within the last 15 minutes put out a shelter-in-place warning, and our team coverage of Hurricane Milton continues now in Pinellas County.
Yeah, that's right. Our ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler is in downtown St. Pete with the very latest out there. Eric, wow, the wind I can see is picking up because your camera can't even keep you in focus. There you are. You okay out there?
Hey there. Yeah, we're doing fine. The rain covering on the camera sometimes is going to definitely blow up as the wind blows up around us. So we are here just off of Central Avenue in downtown St. Petersburg. The weather has obviously deteriorated over the last couple hours. We are seeing the strongest gusts so far. You can see it. We are under some cover here at the True by Hilton Hotel. Let's take a quick look inside here. Let's see. You can see there are people that have been in here most of the day, making friends. You have family gathering together, eating, playing pool, playing chess, doing the best they can to make the best of a terrible situation. But better for them to be inside than out here, because
bad weather and the bad effects of this storm are going to be in that croissant-shaped red feature to the north. That's that northern eye wall. So this blue kind of box here, the National Weather Service put out, that's an extreme wind warning for Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota County, and extending inland a bit. That's for the winds up to, say, gusting to 120, 125 miles per hour across the metropolitan area of Tampa, St. Petersburg. Then we have on the other side of it, we have the water coming around like this, and that's pushing the water in toward Venice, Englewood, down to Charlotte Harbor, Punta Gorda, Fort Myers, and Naples. So let's take a look at that. The other thing I wanted to show you is this. This is where the hurricane hunters located the center, plus or minus. Actually, it still had a south wind at that point, so the center was over here just a little bit at that time. And that's the feature that they're tracking there. You see that little circle spinning around there? That's the actual center, because that's the old smaller eye wall. And notice what direction that's going. That's going right in here. So this is going to make landfall, it looks like, right around Sarasota. So this is going to put maximum storm surge down here, Boca Grande, all these areas along near Englewood, Venice Beach, and so forth, and into Fort Myers, although they'll be farther coast. Here's where we are right now, 3.7 feet above normal high tide at Naples is major flood stage. So there is flooding underway there along the coast in Naples and starting to push inland. And the tide is still coming in, and the push from the hurricane is not there yet. Look at the angle that the winds are flowing. When the hurricane gets up here, the winds are going to come like this, and that'll be the maximum push. Looks like that's going to come 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. At Fort Myers, up the river at 2.7 feet above normal high tide, this is going to be flooding initially here into downtown Fort Myers. So a lot going on there. There you see the peak. See, this is the storm surge from the storm pushing it up. There's the normal tide. So we're in a phase here of the tide coming in, although the peak tide is not until after midnight tonight. So we don't deal with peak tide quite, but slowly rising tide here, plus the push of the wind from the storm. So, Steve, I think it's pretty clear that there in Tampa where you are, you're going to get these very, very strong winds coming in from a generally east, northeast, then east, and then southeast direction, or maybe southeast switching around, and it's going to push the water out of Tampa Bay, and then we'll see about flooding around the interior parts of the bay, but the beaches in Pinellas County look good. Looks like we're not going to have the surge there.
That's a good note to have there. With looking at around the Bay Area, the wind, though, is a big concern, and we'll be talking about that through the night ahead. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross, thank you for that update. Let's take you now on the ground and show you what it's like just outside of here, about an hour away into Bradenton, Florida. Here's Sarasota right next. That's like the sister city to Bradenton. That's where we find Fox Weather correspondent Robert Ray. And Robert, I mean, we're talking about the Manatee River. I mean, this thing is raging right now.
It is remarkable to look at and listen. You know, some of the most important things that I'm seeing out here is the fact that, you know, all of this is brushing right into homes, unfortunately, on that side, which also are containing their power in the distance. I don't know if those people are on generators or what, but we know that power has been lost in some of these areas. We just saw some of the pops happen moments ago, unfortunately. And, you know, I have to say, Steve, we're starting to have vegetation come off of some trees and shrubs, and that is indicative of the wind speeds beginning to be increased, unfortunately, as part of this eye wall is out there getting really close. We don't have an official landfall yet, but the eye wall is upon us right now, and unfortunately, it's just going to get more intense as this comes in. On the other side of the Manatee River is Tampa Bay, okay? And that is where the water will begin to come in, unfortunately. At 10 to 15 feet of storm surge in some of these areas that is predicted, in places that have already been ravaged by Hurricane Helene 2 weeks ago. Piles of debris everywhere. They just didn't have time to remove them. And I just had something hit my helmet, and I heard a click there. So I probably need to get glasses on for the next time I head out here for these live reports. And by the way, we are monitoring this water very, very carefully. And we have an exit route that will take us through a neighborhood into mainland and get us out of the shore here. But we think we're going to be okay, at least for the time being. High tide is not until 4:40 a.m. Here, and we will see in the next hour or so a landfall somewhere very close to here. Mass evacuations have been in play. If you haven't evacuated, yeah, it's too late. Hunker down, head on a swivel, and keep focused, because you're going to need that as the rain and the winds kick up and the sound is raging and roaring here. Milton, just malicious. We are taking it here on the Gulf Coast, as the entire peninsula of Florida is going to overnight well into the morning. Godspeed, everyone. Everybody in Florida, all the Fox Weather crews, and the first responders. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Robert, thank you for that update. Please be safe, my friend. Keep your head on a swivel. I'm going to
by Hurricane Helene, this is going to be a knockout.
Tampa's fire chief telling me it's all hands on deck. But for those who didn't evacuate, rescue teams are now on hold during the storm.
So you're essentially on your own?
Yes, you're pretty much on your own. If you don't get out, you're pretty much on your own. And we don't want to hear that. We don't want any casualties with this storm.
More than 3 million people call the Tampa metro area home, many packing shelters. And tonight, they've added 3 more.
It's frightening. It's frightening.
Gloria McNair evacuated her senior living complex, taking her 10-year-old grandson to this emergency shelter.
I didn't leave the first storm, Helene. I stayed home. But this one is a little different, so I'm not going to take a chance.
Statewide, officials say they can safely shelter more than 200,000 people, and no one will be turned away. In St. Petersburg, fears that giant high-rise cranes could spin or come crashing down. The mayor urging residents near construction sites downtown to evacuate or move to an inner area without windows. And there are still piles of debris left behind by Helene that could be sent airborne by Milton's 100+ mile-per-hour winds. Officials say they cleared about 80% of it before weather conditions forced them to stop.
And David, officials now say more than 13,000 people are spending the night in shelters in the Tampa area. And as you can see, conditions are rapidly deteriorating and only going to get worse. Milton is expected to bring up to a foot of rain here on top of that record storm surge. For those who did not evacuate, now is the time to hunker down. David?
Wade Johnson in Tampa tonight with Thank You. Of course, we'll stay on this hurricane throughout the night here. Live coverage on our digital channel, ABC News Live. Later tonight, a special edition of Nightline and, of course, GMA first thing in the morning. We do have one more note tonight on these hurricanes. President Biden saying federal help will be here for the people of Florida. And he addressed the misinformation late today about the response after Hurricane Helene. He says the falsehoods spread by former President Trump. I want to bring in Mary Bruce. She's live at the White House. Mary, let's listen to what the president said just before we came on the air tonight. We'll get your reaction here on the backside.
Over the last few weeks, there's been reckless and irresponsible and relentless promotion of disinformation and outright lies about what's going on. It's undermining confidence in the people in Florida. An incredible rescue and recovery work that has been undertaken. Literally, there are thousands of fellow Americans who are putting their lives at stake and putting on the line to do the dangerous work that needs to be done now. And it's harmful to those who most need the help. Quite frankly, these lies are un-American, and there's simply no place for them. Not now, not ever. Former President Trump has led this onslaught of lies. They're saying that money needed for these crises are being diverted to migrants. What the heck are they talking about? Stop it. It's outrageous. It's just not true.
Mary, President Biden calling these lies un-American.
David, he says these claims are reckless, ridiculous, and that it has to stop. And tonight, he's trying to set the record straight and get the truth across. He is urging those in Milton's path to follow the advice of local officials, to listen to them and to follow all of the safety guidelines and information. And the president is making it clear they are surging resources to the area. There are thousands of federal responders, he says, on the ground, poised to help. The president speaking directly to the American people, saying we have your back and that he and the vice president will be there for as long as it takes. David.
Mary Bruce live at the White House. Mary, thank you. We move on to the other news tonight. The alarming scene in the cockpit during a flight from Seattle to Istanbul. The captain of a Turkish Airlines passenger jet, seen in a photo obtained by a state-run news outlet, suddenly losing consciousness.
But you do know what you guys are telling us, and obviously for a lot of people, that's the lifeline, is the information.
The worst will be in your area.
I'm seeing glows in the distance.
Yeah, I'm sure. The worst in your area will probably be about 45 minutes, and then it'll last for about an hour. So if you can get a place of safety, maybe where you can show us what's happening while you're safe as that comes up, that would be awesome, because it's definitely going to get worse quick.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we're ready. Whenever you guys want to come to us, we'll be ready for you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Again, Paul Agrone in Bradenton. We also have Mike Paluska. Mike is in Venice, I believe? Sarasota. Mike's in Sarasota. Mike, you're even closer. You're about 25 miles. Just measured it out here. So it looks, marginal right now, but I think it's going to go downhill pretty quickly.
Yeah, you know what, Paul? You know what, Dennis?
It has, and it's getting pretty intense where we're at. There's a lot of trees in the backyard of the house, so I've positioned myself in the middle of the street, and nothing big's flying our way, but we're getting some really extreme gusts, and I just looked at the radar map too, and so I guess that southern part's coming in. You can tell that I'm not wearing a jacket because there's really no rain out here, which I think you were mentioning, you know, that southern part's breaking apart and it's weakening, which is good news. We want this thing to fall apart as fast as it can. My photographer Reed Moeller is positioned up top, kind of in a bird's nest up there, and I'm just going to give you a lay of the land on where we are. These are some of the things that are concerning us, but we're pretty far away from them. You can see that transformer right there. We have been seeing some unreal explosions behind us, and it's not lightning, it's transformers blowing. Power went out here about 20 minutes ago, and then we'll have Reed Moeller pan to the left, and you can see these trees are whipping. We actually have a giant pine tree in the backyard that we are staying way far away from. Whoa, that was a good gust. We've positioned ourselves, and you saw that explosion out there. I'm not sure where my photographer's pointing, but you saw that explosion out there by that house, Dennis. And so I think what we're going to start seeing, I know we're not in that extreme wind warning, but you know, this is intense. I wouldn't say it's as intense as we saw when we were in the eye wall of Hurricane Ian, but I think it's going to start to ramp up, what, maybe 30 minutes or so from now, and then we'll be in it, like you said, for maybe an hour?
Yeah.
Or are we going to get what Paul gets?
No, actually, he'll probably get more than you do, depending on where it is. But I don't know, looking from our perspective, that's coming down. And you know, you got those mobile homes right there. That's obviously a scary thing as well. So, I mean, really, you got to find a place of safety. You're right. You're not going to have to worry about rain. You're one of those people we were talking about. You're going to have a ton of wind, and yet it's probably going to be very little of any rain there.
Yeah, you know, and that's actually, I like not being in the rain because it's really hard to report when you're getting pelted with rain in your eyes. Just saw another explosion back behind Reed, and you saw that explosion out in the distance. And, you know, I think when we cover these storms, you know, you expect them to be front-loaded on the right side, Dennis, and I'm kind of trying to figure out why it's lopsided this time and going sort of towards the St. Pete area. Is that from the shear that came down with that cold front?
Yeah, the shear's coming in from the southwest, and what happens? Whoa, yep, yeah, you can see that gust there. Yeah, it is lopsided. All of the wind, all of the rain is on the north side, and storms have a tendency to draw toward that where that strength is, so that's why I was lifting a little more north at first. But last check, it's actually kind of kicking back to the east, so it's wobbles. I mean, and you know that. You've been covering these a long time. You know how wobbles are pretty much unpredictable.
Yeah, they are. And you know, one of the things that concerns me the most is we were out on Lido, and now we're getting even more storm surge here. And that's super concerning. I mean, you know, there's all these people that didn't evacuate, so my heart is breaking for anyone that's still there. Obviously, we've been covering Helene. I'll just see where this is going. I think we're still good out here for now. I don't think these are hurricane force gusts, but we're getting pretty close to high-end tropical storm force winds. I'm going to kick it over to these trees and have Reed zoom in on that backside. Those guys are really bending. We've got trees down around this neighborhood that we're in Sarasota. We're close to downtown Sarasota. We're about a mile from Sarasota High. My coworker Julie Salamone is super close to where we are as well, her Airbnb. And you know, I think where we're positioned here, I think we should be able to ride this out and give you guys coverage to see what's going to be coming up through Tampa. That's the most important thing, you know. I know people think we're crazy when we stand out here, but you know, you wouldn't ask a fireman not to run into a burning building, so sometimes our job requires us to be out working. There went another explosion behind me. Power's going to be out for a while here, I think. I mean, this area, as you know, is so inundated with pine trees, and we've seen them just falling on lines, on lines, on lines, and exploding. Huge explosions, like booms of big branches that are hitting our house. It's brand new, just built, block construction, second floor. And we really, I was worried a little bit about localized street flooding. I'm really not anymore. We're hardly getting any flooding in the street. And as you mentioned, we're not going to be the ones getting the rain. So yeah, it's really coming in now, Dennis. And I think there's one more really big gust here. I'm just going to check down the street. You know, it's actually, I have a clear line of sight to my left and my right. And I've got my field producer, Sean Daly, watching as well. We do want to be safe. I got 3 kids at home, and one is a month old. And so when it starts to get bad, we're going to go in. Mostly leaves now, Dennis. Mostly just leaves. These trees are holding up pretty good. So yeah, this is a good spot, and these power lines look like they're pretty stable as well. That transformer we thought might explode, but I think since the power exploded behind us a couple of times, this one's not energized anymore.
Hey Mike, how far are you from the water?
You know?
How far are you from the water?
We are, as the crow flies, Dennis, we're 1 mile from Sarasota Bay in evacuation zone E.
Okay.
So we're really close to the water, and we were in Lido Beach yesterday, and we interviewed a guy. He has a frame house. He's lived there 34 years. He was boarding it up. He said he didn't get really much water from Helene because he's elevated a little bit. I said, hey man, how are you doing? He said, look, I'm gonna.
Starting to see a degradation in that. Power has gone out. They're as dark as it can be. To my right, to my left, and you see the Manatee River behind me. Maybe you see some of the reflections off of some of the signs that are up in that river. And we are just on the south side of Tampa Bay, the catcher's mitt, as this storm, Milton, is going to make landfall soon. We don't know exactly where, but it will be very, very close to where we are right now positioned. And this Manatee River that is continuing to get flushed, we have not seen surge, thankfully, come up into this area. We're very careful about our exit route as well. But many of these regions that are in the dark with mandatory evacuations on the shorelines, these barrier islands like Bradenton Beach that we reported from all day yesterday with piles of debris still from Hurricane Helene 2 weeks ago. Thankfully, at least according to officials, most people did heed those mandatory evacuations. But right now, these is the most intense conditions that we have gone through the entire evening. And we started in Tampa, went down to Sarasota, and made our way through here. And by far, the heaviest wind gusts that we are experiencing. We know that there's been up to 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I assume that we're seeing higher. I'm flanked between two pieces of vegetation right now to try and save us right now so we're not going to get blown off of this ground, and our vehicles are sitting above here on the Manatee River, being lit by the fox weathered beast. And this is what we're dealing with. We are nowhere near the crescendo, so to speak. There's going to be landfall, and then there will be some more of the energy that comes through. And it moves all the way inland and onto the other side of the peninsula. We are just getting going, unfortunately, and we can only pray and send positive vibes in the air across the peninsula of Florida that it is not as catastrophic as we have predicted. But there may be situations overnight tonight that first responders will not be able to get to. As you said, they have suspended operations in most spots. And as you can see, this is why, Steve. Back to you.
That's good. Thank you. And Robert, thank you for that in-depth reporting, talking about what's happening there along the Gulf Coast. We'll continue to check in with you because we are getting closer and closer to that inevitable landfall here, and you're right into the center of all of that. You can see Robert bracing for all of this. Again, the wind is really starting to bring it. We're going to go north of Robert right now, out towards Madera Beach, Florida, and bring in Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist. That is Mike Seidel. Mike, every vantage point we've seen, this is really starting to enhance, and it looks like it's really deteriorated for you as well.
Yes, indeed, Steve. We're in the eye wall right now on the north side. You can see on the radar where the eye is. It's just off the coast, right along the coast, down in Manatee and Sarasota counties, up here in Pinellas County. It's all about the wind and the rain on the north side. Even kind of a chill tonight. This is not one of those summer hurricanes where temperatures are in the low 80s. It's down about 74, 75, and we still have the east wind. And that is a good thing because that's going to keep the water out. And as Brian Norcross mentioned, if it does continue its trek in just to our south, we're not going to get the surge that was forecast, thank goodness, on the Pinellas County beaches and up north, because the wind's going to stay offshore until the storm goes by Tampa, and then eventually we'll get a west to southwest wind. But by that point, it's not possible to get those 8 to 12 foot numbers. So at this point, we're looking better and better. We're not out of the woods yet, and certainly not from the rain and wind department. We've now had another inch plus at St. Petersburg Airport between 6 and 7 Eastern. They're now over 8 inches of rain today. We're forecasting 12 plus, 12 to 18 inches. Flood watches are up across a good chunk of the Florida Peninsula, along with that tornado watch till 9, and we'll see where it sets up when they extend it, because they will extend it, the Storm Prediction Center, at 9 Eastern. Right now it covers just about all of the peninsula, with just this howling wind blowing right to the Gulf of Mexico. So right now, the beaches, you can still see them. And we're hoping that holds. And once the storm goes by, Steve, we will get an onshore flow. But at that point, we're going to miss the major push of water like they're seeing south of here, as Robert Ray mentioned, as you go from the areas in Manatee and Sarasota County down towards Fort Myers and Naples. The other thing we've noticed, we did see something flash over there. The power is still on here on the island, but on the beach rather, Madeira Beach, but I did notice that about 7%, at last check, 7% of residents in Pinellas County are without power. That's not bad, 7%. We'll take it, we'll see how things shake out in the next few hours as we keep up with these hurricane force wind gusts. So Steve, right now a positive vibe, a little bit of a positive vibe because of that track for us here in Pinellas County onto the beaches, but we still have to get through the next few hours of the wind.
It is in the dark right now. These lights you're seeing are from us and our generator. We saw the wind has been consistently strong. This is nothing compared to what it was literally 5 seconds ago. So any moment now we could see a huge gust come in. It is all wind and hardly any rain. We're in Bradenton, a few miles south of the Manatee River. Okay, I want to go this way. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, just showing you around as far as the lights will take me. You see those trees whipping in the background, and that's our primary indicator of how strong these winds are. And again, literally at any second, we could get another punch here of wind. We're surrounded by water in the sense of the Manatee River is to our north and the intercoastal is to our west. Heavy rainfall for hours until about 45 minutes ago, and it switched to all wind. I'm just shielding my eyes because I want to make sure that nothing's coming off of that roof. About 20 minutes ago, we saw several explosions and sparks. The power lines basically lit up, went out, and that's when the power on this block basically went out for everyone. Our friends over there, Carl and Gigi, they might be watching us if they have a generator, but I don't think they are. We talked to them live on the air when you guys last came to us. It's almost like the rain is being sprayed above us, and it's all wind. We are starting to get a little bit more rain right now, but mostly this is a wind event at this moment here. Of course, the storm surge is a different story because we already know that the Manatee River is flooding and the streets near and along the Manatee River are underwater right now. We knew that before the sun went down. The police department here in Bradenton put that information out. And of course, the storm surge is the story that we're going to have to continue to monitor. Wind damage, I will say so far, we haven't seen anything, even though the wind has been strong. So far, these trees have held up, and so far, these homes have not seen it. I have not seen anything come off the homes or hit anything. The signs have remained intact. So despite the strong wind, even though we see some things waving in the wind, so far so good in that regard. But yes, now you're riding out a hurricane without power in the dark in Bradenton, as so many others are throughout the greater Tampa Bay region as Milton makes landfall here. I will say this, you know, we did see somebody ride their motorbike right through the street here right after our last live shot with no helmet or cover on. So you could say well, Paul, you're doing the same thing. You're out in a hurricane, and okay, maybe you got a point. But I just don't want to see anyone. I don't want to see anyone get hurt. Obviously, you know, I want everyone to make it through this thing. So as I come back your way, you know, I think right now people are hunkered down. They're where they're going to be to ride this thing out. I think what's interesting is how it went from being, you know, rain to now wind. Although we are starting to see just a bit of a break with the wind right now. Of course, as I send it back to you, as soon as you guys go to somebody else, we'll have this huge gust of wind. That's how it always works. And the power of Milton is real, which is why people are taking it seriously. Man, okay, that's a strong gust. The rain is starting to come down and the wind is whipping wildly right now. You know, the one thing you don't have to worry about, I guess, is the power's already out, so you're not going to have an explosion of sparks or fire from the power lines, because that's already been taken care of by Milton.
Paul,
what you could have is flying debris. So
I don't know, Paul.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I'm wondering, is this the strongest gust you've gotten so far? Because it looks like the eye is just uncomfortably close.
Yeah, you know, Wendy, it's so unpredictable. And when we say gusts, I'd liken it to, I mean, I hate to be violent, but, you know, I liken it to a punch. I mean, it's the best way I can describe it, because that's how long it lasts. It's literally like that. Okay, wow. And then it goes away, and then it might come back again. So, you know, having experience covering Adalia live in the daytime, you know, and I almost got knocked over on live TV. I grabbed onto a bench just in time before I almost bit it on live television because the wind moved me. I think I admitted my weight at the time was 170 pounds. I may have been fudging the numbers on that a little bit. And in the years since, I think I've added a few pounds. So the wind has not moved me in that way yet. I do have the advantage of this house blocking the wind, and it's coming from the southeast. It hasn't switched direction quite yet. When it whips back the other way, the wind is going to be blowing toward us, toward the house in this direction. Right now, it's still coming off the roof and blowing whatever it will over the roof line here. So this is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, the wind is real. And the rain. I mean, now the rain is starting to pick back up. So now you've got the double whammy of wind and rain. And I can only imagine what that means for the storm surge along the Manatee River in the mouth of Tampa Bay.
All right, well, we will certainly check back in with you in just a bit as the winds continue to pick up. I know landfall, I believe, is between 8:30 and 10, so we're just about an hour into those most intense winds as the eye of the wall continues to move closer to the coast.
And truly, you have to feel for the people who are there right now without power, because this is the scary point that we've been talking about, to hear all those winds. And I mean, take the rain out of the picture. It's
for sure
the winds when you hear
and that whistling that they talk about so much.
Yeah. So Pinellas County, we know within the last 30 minutes they were put into basically a shelter-in-place warning. So we want to now move to our reporter in Pinellas County.
That's right, and our Eric Waxler is standing by in downtown St. Pete with the latest out there. Eric?
Yeah, Wendy, we are feeling it here in downtown St. Pete for sure. Major wind gusts ripping through here. We got the warning about an hour ago of wind gusts at 50 miles an hour. I think we've definitely topped that now. And take a look. First of all, let me tell you that I feel very fortunate. We are undercover on the third floor balcony here at this hotel on Central Avenue. It's the True by Hilton. And so we are thankful, as are many people here that are sheltering here, to be in a place. It's a 7-story building, and so we are here, and we are not out in the elements. Thankfully, thanks to a little covering. Although we can definitely feel it and give you the vantage point from here. And you see down at Central Avenue, you see the trees blowing. You see sheets of wind, sheets of rain just coming down 17th Street there, and just such force up against these buildings. And we definitely have some viewers in some of these apartments. We can see those folks there that we've been following for several hours now with the Jack Skellington decoration there on their balcony. They've got the light so we can see that Jack is still there. They've left him hanging up, and they're watching ABC Action News coverage. And I can look through some of the
the impacts that many people have felt so far or have been threatened by, which is tornadoes. And so earlier today we went to a neighborhood where some of the roofs were gone, just pieces of different buildings and signs also just kind of strewn about. So a lot of people already feeling the brunt of it. But I think the good news is right now where we are, just kind of in the middle of Fort Myers, it's not too bad considering everything for the most part. But again, we know this is not the end of it, and I'm sure things are a lot more rough for the folks that are along the coast, along the Gulf Coast, and close to those waterways, really having to consider the storm surge in this case. Steve?
Yeah, there's so many of these little waterways. As you had mentioned, there's the Walker Creek up here in Sarasota. It's risen 10 feet in total. You know, you think about that, how quickly that can all happen. Brandy, and you spoke about those tornadic conditions. My concern about all of that for you and those people there in Fort Myers and Southwest Florida, that happened so early on in this event with Milton.
Yeah, exactly. And so some of the residents were saying they're concerned about the rainfall that could get into their homes. And obviously you're exposed, your roof is exposed. You know, once that goes, that kind of leaves the rest of your home vulnerable to further impact. So it's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, it just shows you how many layers there are in this event with threats, right, Brandy? When we look at all of Florida, they've had over 130 tornado warnings throughout this event. As you alluded to, though, once your home is exposed and you have all that rain coming in, now you're thinking about those homes are going to have to be gutted and everything replaced there. Major concerns as we were watching the water rise. Brandy Campbell, thank you for that update from Fort Myers. Please be safe. We'll check back in with you. I want to show you some video that I got from my family here just outside of West Palm there in Wellington, Florida, where they had a tornado rip through earlier today, not too long ago. And when we look at the damage, it's been extensive. I've been told everybody in this neighborhood and the nearby neighborhoods are without power. Sadly, there's been homes.
Rivers of channels of wind. Right now, because of safety concerns, and I'm so grateful to have Tony and Tim with me. They're complete pros at what they do, and logistically have set us up in such a way where we're able to cover and witness this storm and bring you these images live in real time of Hurricane Milton. And I do feel safe, in large part because of them. You still have to keep your head on a swivel, though, especially when that wind switches back the other way. So, you know, and with it being nighttime, I think it adds an extra layer of caution for everyone who is riding out this storm. And it's almost one of these things where you can't fear what you can't see. So if you are inside, like our friends Carl and Gigi across the street that we spoke with, you're just riding it out. Hopefully you have a generator. If you don't, maybe you call it a night and just hold on tight to each other and see what you're dealing with the next day. You know, looking at their house right now looks good. Everything looks fine. But it's the cumulative effect of the wind, of the rainfall, of the storm surge. And we do know that to our north is the Manatee River. And it's already flooded over its banks, and there's street flooding along that. That was to be expected, and the storm surge, as Dennis was saying, could be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 feet. And then, of course, you have the rainfall that has been steady all day, the wind that is starting to pick up, and over to the east, or rather, the west, I should say, is Tampa Bay and the Intercoastal as you get over to Braden Beach, where no doubt the storm surge is going to cause some damage. So our thoughts are with those folks. Hopefully they decided to evacuate. That's a strong gust of wind. I am hearing reports of folks on Longboat Key that are calling for help. They did not evacuate. And that's not a good situation to be in, because right now first responders cannot get to you under these conditions. So, you know, we cover this storm in real time, but in the back of our minds, we're just holding on to hope that no matter what, when it comes to the property damage, we'll deal with that in the light of day. We just want everyone to be safe. As I'm looking at some glows in the sky, some transformers perhaps that are going out again. And I think that's the main concern right now is it's nighttime. There's no power. The wind is howling. It's a long night with no power, with howling wind and with heavy rain. Wherever you are, just ride this thing out, be safe. And that's how you win. That's how you beat this storm. That's how you beat Hurricane Milton. As you wake up the next day, your feet hit the ground, and you can get to work and turn the page. And that's what we just got to hold on to. Don't lose sight of how special this place is. I know we deal with hurricanes. I know that it's, quite frankly, I don't want to say a certain word, but let's just say we all know that this was a heavy day and a heavy couple of days leading up to this. I'm from here. This place is personal to me. I grew up here. It's in my blood. It's part of my family, multiple generations. This is part of who I am. Let's not forget what makes Tampa Bay so beautiful and so special. And a hurricane is not going to change that. We had a bad month, and I'm not to minimize it at all. And I know it is not over. And we'll get to the other side of this. But that's the thing. We will get to the other side of it. This is a beautiful place. This is where we win Super Bowls and Stanley Cups, and we come together and we have boat parades and we create wonderful memories, and there's beautiful things to see. And I don't know these people. I went up to them randomly, and they couldn't have been nicer. It's a place where people come from other parts of the country to live their best life, their best version of that life. And it's filled with great people, and we've seen how people reacted to Helene after that. They didn't cower in fear. They came together, and they did what they had to do to get people back up on their feet, and that's what they're going to do after Hurricane Milton, as soon as it's safe to get out and about, and know that the state has resources in place to get the power back on and get us back up and running. So I don't mean to preach, okay, but I'm not passing through this town. This is my home. This is my hometown, and I'm proud to say that. And I know the people of Tampa Bay. I know who you are because I'm one of you. And not only will we get through this, we will learn something from it. We will come together, and things are going to be okay. So I know it's scary. Just get through the night, and we'll get back up and running tomorrow.
Paul, you can preach anytime you want.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Really important.
Yes, beautifully said, my friend, beautifully said. We'll check back with you in just a bit, but beautifully said. And, not being from here, born and raised in Cleveland, I have been here 20 years. It feels like home to me as well.
It's home for
But I'll tell you, it is a beautiful place to live, and we have to keep that in mind, too. And, in the winter, you're from Boston, right? We know in the winter that's why everybody comes to Florida, and we live here, and that's why it's beautiful. Okay, we want to get to Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. Important information right now, Paul. I'm sorry, Dennis.
Yeah, Wendy, we're about to make landfall. Landfall is about to occur, and it could not be a better example of how wobbles can go any way and every way. Because over the last 4 or 5 hours, in fact, when it's done, we'll go back and show you. But you had dots going due north, and then all of a sudden, just boom, went right. And instead of going into northern Manatee County or even close to the bay, I suspect landfall is actually going to be around Osprey or Vamo, between Sarasota and Venice. I think that's where landfall is going to occur. Now, what makes it more challenging is we always think about, if you're right at the eye, that's where the heaviest winds are. Well, usually it is, but not this time, because this storm is quickly turning into more of a winter-type nor'easter storm where the winds have expanded. The storm is weakening. It's absolutely weakening. But our winds are significant. We just had a 96-mile-an-hour wind gust in St. Pete. In Sarasota, rather. St. Pete at 89. And if you look here, we still have that purple color. That is the extreme wind warning, which means winds up to about 115 miles an hour until 9:30. You take a closer look, there it is. Pinellas, Hillsborough, and most of Manatee County. And think about that. The eye is going to be down here. You normally think, okay, it's a hurricane. The heaviest winds are north and east of the eye, but in this particular case, and I think with good reason, because of all the shear that we have been just talking about, harping about for the longest time, for the last 3 or 4 days, it came to play. And in doing so, it really caused the bulk of the energy to be outside of what we typically think would be a typical tropical system right around the eye. It's on the northern eye wall. And Greg and Jason and I were talking about it. Quite often when you have a storm, this happened, was it with Helene or was it Debbie? Which was the one where it went up toward the top where the convection was?
It was Helene.
It was Helene, okay. Yeah. So here's what happened, I think. So you've got almost all of the deep convection, the strong storms, the heavy rain in the northern eye wall. And as this storm was going north, all of a sudden, it kind of got a little lopsided, and then all of a sudden, boom, it wobbled off to the right. It literally made a right turn. Boy, that kind of sounds familiar. It's kind of Charlie-like, doesn't it? But at the end of the day, the overall track still brings our area, and when I say our area, our core counties of Pinellas and Hillsborough, and even into Polk, because I think there's a legitimate chance that this purple box would be extended over here. I mean, I think there's at least a chance it is going to weaken as it moves in, but we'll see if the Weather Service says, you know what, maybe Polk County might get it on the act as well. But these folks are expecting winds up to 115 miles an hour. And I've been getting some video. Last check, we had 175,000 people without power in Pinellas County. And I suspect, I have little doubt that number's probably higher now. So we still have all of this rain and we have all of this wind, but what we are not going to see is the surge, at least in these northern counties, all right? Pasco, Pinellas, with this center this far south and going offshore, you are having all of this water pushing offshore. Now, as it continues to move this way, it's still eventually going to push some water in, but it's not going to be anywhere near what it could have been if the track was a little closer and if the storm was a little stronger. Remember, this was Cat 5 earlier today. Now it's barely a Cat 3, soon to be a Cat 2. Tons of rain in that northern eye wall. And this might very well, I think it's going to be twofold. I mean, I think we're going to have a lot of trees down tonight, and we'll see it tomorrow. And so we have all of the power outages. We're going to have some trees on houses. You know we are. And then we have the flooding that's going on with this because this is far from over. I mean, these areas have already seen nearly a foot of rain, and there's a lot more on the way. So flash flooding, certainly expected for the next several hours. I mean, you can see it right there. I mean, there it is. And in that red right there, that's where those winds from Bradenton to St. Pete and across the bay, those are winds that are gusting between 90 and 100 miles an hour. So here's the bottom line, guys. All right, we have been talking about this thing for days. We've evacuated, we've prepped, and now we're to the point where this is it, and in 4 or 5 hours, the worst of this will be over. And tomorrow, you know, we'll get together, neighbors helping neighbors, and we'll get through it. But I think at least in a smaller sense, the people who live on the bay, you know, that was always the big question mark. That was, I mean, you guys know what I'm saying. The prediction from the Hurricane Center was a 10 to 15 foot surge. Now, yes, it was a worst case scenario, and we kept saying that. Look, this is worst case. Probably not going to happen, but it could. Well, now those numbers are probably going to end up being not only high, extremely high, and even the 6 to 9 that's the current forecast might very well be on the high side. So, unfortunately, on the flip side, you're going to be dealing with a lot of wind and some heavy rain as well. So again, here it is. These are the current wind gusts, 77 in St. Pete, 72 Bradenton and Sarasota. I have yet to see a 100 on here, but I kind of think we're going to see one. What was that again, Eliana?
Position that we're in, I have to think we're going to have to zigzag through. We're just going to have to see, play it by ear. We know that we're safe right now, but what's to come is another piece of the logistics. We just don't know. Head on a swivel right now, super hyper focused, and that's the key. We got to be like that. Kiana?
This afternoon, I know the winds are picking up there. You probably can hardly hear me, but heading to the Gulf of Mexico, what's next in line for tonight?
Well, that's where we're going, and we're going to have to see the way this goes as far as hurricane tracking and coverage, especially if you're going to move around and you're not going to be in a lockdown position. Is we have plans and we know what we're doing, but on the other hand, we're always expecting the unexpected. So moment to moment, I can guarantee you, we get on some of these roads and we will not believe what we will see, unfortunately. I just hope that it is not catastrophic at this point. As the past 2 hours, we've had some incredibly strong hurricane gusts come through here, as expected. And we just, tomorrow morning when the light comes up, it's just going to be a mess, no doubt. But we'll see how it goes tonight.
Absolutely, Robert. Looking forward to hearing your story continue. Stay safe, head on a swivel out there, and we'll be checking in with you through the course of tonight. Thank you so much, Robert, there. Stay safe tonight. And we do want to continue the coverage here as we continue to watch things picking up. We've been talking about the winds. Top winds right now out of Sarasota coming in. Wind gusts at 72 miles per hour. Just to the south of that, Fort Myers doesn't have a gauge. It looks like that wind gust might have been knocked out. And just to the north, Tampa coming in near 60 mile per hour wind gusts. So really close to picking up. I want to take it back out to the field. We have Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel. He's live in Madeira Beach. We'll talk to him in just a moment. But as we continue to watch, Tampa is catching the rain. And as we look at the wind gusts, as I've been mentioning, with the landfall imminent, these are expected, these wind gusts getting up to 70, near 80 miles per hour on the southwest side of Florida. We also see some bigger wind gusts up towards Orlando that have been picking up. And Sam, if you can help me push this along, that would be helpful. Top wind gusts have been coming out of Sarasota, 93 miles per hour. So this is what we're feeling as this gets ready to make that landfall. We do want to toss it to Fox Weather's storm specialist, Mike Seidel. He's out in Madeira Beach, catching the latter half of the conditions. And he's seeing conditions just like this with the power outages that just have been pouring in. We're looking at top power outages.
From, I'd say, Sarasota High School. We're 1 mile from Sarasota Bay. And honestly, we've had very little rain. The rain has been pretty much nothing. My photographer, Reed Moeller, I'm going to walk over to this house if you can track me. And I've got photographer Andre Amial here. And I want to show you this house because this has been scaring us. Reed can zoom in a little bit. I'm going to crank this light down a little. This has already been ripped off, this carport. They've already lost the entire front part of their roof. This thing has been dangling and slamming into this over the past hour. And they've got these crazy weird wind chimes. And we tried to take them down because we didn't want them to get blown off and just nail us. It's like a metal sort of flipped up flower, but I couldn't take them down because they're bolted in to that. And then there's another one on this side. You can see this right here came up from underneath some of their vinyl siding. And this house, this is a wood frame, old school, you know, who knows when it was built, 1950s. And so this has been terrifying. We've been hearing explosions. We've been seeing the power take hits. You can see that thing now kind of still flopping with a little bit of the breeze. Transformers have blown. We had a really, really strong bolt of lightning that lit up everything, and then we heard thunder. And you know, typically these storms, you know, when they're building, Dennis, as you know, we get a lot of lightning when we see them out in the Gulf. Not normally when they come ashore. So that was pretty scary. And it's scary to be out here at night when it's whipping. I mean, I won't.
Gusted to 79 miles an hour, which is just over hurricane force. The Sarasota gusts we mentioned in the low 90s. The wind still basically blowing east, so we still don't have any concerns about the surge. And we've been talking about this over the past couple of hours, the fact that with Milton going in just to our south, that's going to cut down on those surge values that were forecast here. 8 to 12 today. That's not going to verify because we're not going to get the onshore wind until it's too late to push all that water up. Not that we're not going to get any surge at all, but it's going to be a lower value, and that it seems to be the case too for Tampa Bay. We've talked to Brian Norcross throughout the evening how this changes the whole calculus of the situation. It's all about the wind direction, and that wind is going to be blowing out of Tampa Bay. Now eventually it will come around from that direction, from the southwest and south off the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll have some water rise. But the saving grace for our area is there's so much debris around. Not so much right where I'm standing, thankfully, because that's why I'm standing here. I didn't want to get hit by anything. But all the neighborhoods in this area and these beaches, these barrier islands here in Pinellas County, down towards Manatee and Sarasota counties, there's so much debris that in this area, if you if you don't get that water, it's not going to float around. That we still have wind blowing things around, but we're not going to have, it doesn't seem like we're going to have the situation I had envisioned earlier today of, you know, a 6, 7, 8 foot surge. Everything floats around and gets blown around, and then tomorrow morning when we wake up and you got to get the bulldozers back out and the heavy loaders, front end loaders, to get everything off the street so it's passable. Power outages now up to about 17% of all customers in Pinellas County, and it's probably changed, but the last time I looked about 10 minutes ago, pushing 550,000, just over 1 million customers without power in the state of Florida. A sporty night here in Madeira Beach, but a glimmer of hope for the Tampa Bay area as the surge is certainly coming up south of here, but right now no surge yet here on the Pinellas County beaches, and we don't expect any big numbers or any records like Clearwater set just 13 days ago, 8.6 feet with a lean. So Kiana, that's how it stands here. It's status quo in the eye wall for now. Eventually it will go through here, and I'm giving us about another 3 hours or so before we start to see things tame down as far as the rain goes. Wait a minute now, my phone is going off here. Now, we had a severe wind warning for this area until 9:30. It went off, but I don't see anything on my screen just yet, so I'm not quite sure what the alarm is for, but we still have the storm surge warning and the hurricane warning and also the flood watch here where I'm standing. Kiana?
Worst of things, you do have a flash flood warning over you as well, so stay safe out there. We'll be checking in with you through tonight. And Mike talked about the lack of storm surge there, but there are other areas that are catching the brunt of this.
Yeah, maybe it was the Fox Forecast Center texting him to talk to him about this. Kiana, I haven't seen this in a little bit more than 7 years. I was sitting with a Max computer at the University of South Florida, right there in Tampa. It's a negative surge that's developed in Tampa Bay as that center of circulation is passing just off to the south. Now, wind and rain, the severe weather potential, Mike just talked about that extreme wind warning. There are numerous hazards here, but because of this wind direction, yes, water again, just like we saw back in September of 2017, is being pushed out of the bay. It's not Irma 2.0, but it's the same processes that are producing that. Old Port Tampa, negative 2.0. St. Pete, negative 1.1 foot. So the water is lower as compared to what you would expect because it's quite literally being pushed out of the bay by Milton's winds. Now, that is not the case south of the center. As you see, the direction of these winds are onshore. Punta Gorda, we've got gusts up to almost 80 miles per hour, up to 93 at SRQ, Sarasota, Bradenton International Airport. And unfortunately, the opposite is true where the wind is onshore. You've got almost a perpendicular wind direction to the coastline down here into parts of southwest Florida. Naples now, that number is up to 4.5 feet of water ice. Fort Myers up to 3.6. We're going to have to watch those very closely as we move forward through the short term. You see this center of circulation, it's becoming pretty nebulous. It's going to be whatever the NHC decides is the center of what's left of that inner core. We could be just minutes out, likely within the hour, they'll call a landfall. Keep it right here on Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ, for our continuing coverage of Hurricane Milton through landfall and beyond. We've got these hazards that linger into the overnight.
Well, this is very different than what we were seeing, Dennis, just 30 minutes ago when we were getting big hurricane force gusts here. We are also in Sarasota. We're near Honore Avenue. We're not too far from I-75. We're more inland. We're about 5 miles from downtown and Sarasota Bay. And just like Michael was saying, I've covered a number of hurricanes, not nearly as many as you and Michael, but I've never been inside the eye. It's kind of one of those bucket list things, and it is, as Michael was describing, kind of an eerie situation, knowing that we just went through all of that, all of the rain, all of the wind, and now, it's still a little breezy right here, but there's a calm to it, and you see, as you said, Dennis, with the kind of tale of two cities for this hurricane, with rain to the north and, being more dry to the south, taking off the rain jacket because we haven't had rain in about 2 hours, Dennis.
You are going to see something on the backside, but the worst is over because you actually had that eye very, very close. I'm waiting any minute to get an advisory from the Hurricane Center that this storm made landfall probably around Venice. The center is right around Venice. But folks, let's get back to what is imminent right now, what is pertinent, what is dangerous. I mean, that's kind of why we're here. It's our job to try to keep you safe, not just to show the reporters out there standing in the middle of a storm. I want you to know what's going on, and that is some serious wind across areas of southern Pinellas, Hillsborough County. That red color right there, those are winds of 80 to 100 miles an hour. We still have that extreme wind warning, and that's going to continue for another hour. But what you're seeing right there, so Chad and Mike are down here, right? They're right there. They're in the eye. We're in the northern eye wall. This red color right there is the strongest wind with this storm. And obviously, we're going to continue with our warnings for the next several hours. Current wind gusts 77 miles an hour, hurricane force gusts in St. Pete, 59 in Tampa, 72 in Bradenton, 72 in Sarasota. So when we get an advisory, and we've only had one, I've been here 30 years, we've only had one extreme wind warning that I can remember, and that was in Bartow 6-7 years ago, whenever Irma was. It's kind of all a blur. So that's something we're going to continue. But fortunately, with the storm down here, it's an offshore flow, and that lessens the threat of surge for the bay. So the 6 to 9, there might be some spots that are going to verify on the low side. I kind of doubt they're going to verify on the high side. I want to go over to Jason now. He's got some stuff to share with you as well.
Yeah, guys, go ahead and pull up Max 1. We're getting transformers that are blowing out here in Tampa right now. As Dennis said, the northern eye wall is coming into our area. So just moments ago, blue sky lit up all over here in West Tampa. There, of course, is Ray J. There you go, right there. So we're now getting into the strongest wind gusts so far for Tampa right now, and beginning to see those transformers illuminate the sky here as that northern eye wall has moved into the area. So the worst of the weather has so far been in St. Pete, down south of Bradenton and Sarasota, but now it's really beginning to pick up here in Tampa, and we'll likely start to see a lot of power interruptions, if not complete power outages, setting up here for us across Hillsborough County. So here's where the winds are right now. The highest gusts so far, you can come back out to me, 96 mile per hour wind gusts here in Sarasota, 89 mile per hour wind gust in St. Pete, Venice at 90, and we're at 76 in Brooksville. Tampa so far at 60 miles per hour, but we are just, again, beginning to get into the eye wall here in Tampa. So really quickly, I want to show you why we're starting to see those transformers blow here in Tampa this evening, and this is it. The northern eye wall has made it out of Old Tampa Bay and Hillsborough Bay. If you guys can come back out to me, we can talk a little bit about this here on the monitor too. But that's where we're looking at the strongest winds so far coming into Tampa, and I'm really concerned about this band here. That's moving now up to MacDill Air Force Base in South Tampa. That's the one that's already produced the 96 mile per hour wind gusts here to our south and 89 mile per hour wind gust in St. Pete. That's what's moving into Tampa right now. So in Hillsborough County, we're likely over the next hour going to start to see some significant power outages begin to show up here. I know a lot of you have been saying, hey, what about Pinellas County? It's really bad here. And you're right. You have been stuck in the northwestern eye wall now for a good hour, hour and a half here in St. Pete. And that's why we've seen those gusts up to 90 miles per hour. We've also seen up to a foot of rainfall, and we now have a new flash flood warning that encompasses Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater, and the rainfall totals within that area here from Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater are now approaching 12 inches of rainfall, and we still have another 6 to 12 to go. So there could potentially be some spots with 2 feet of rain by the time we get into this. So it looks like we just took a power hit here in Tampa as I was literally talking about how the worst is moving into Tampa. Not sure if we're still on, but I'm going to continue to broadcast here for you as we watch the power kind of come back on here again in the city. So once again, the worst of the eye wall now setting up for us here from St. Pete into Tampa, and we are now beginning to see those power interruptions and power outages setting up for here for those of us here across West Central Florida getting into the Tampa area. So there it is, northern eye wall, worst of the weather here, Hillsborough and Pinellas County at this point, and these power interruptions, power outages are going to continue for us as we continue through the next hour to hour and a half, because again, this is the worst of the weather with the eye moving just to the south of Tampa in Sarasota and Manatee counties at this point. Northern eye wall, we've been talking about this for hours and hours, that this is where we're going to see the strongest winds. And as we look at the winds inside the storm, these brown and gold colors here and these bright blue colors that are rotating into Tampa.
Here, right? So Venice, Englewood, down to this would be Boca Grande
and Minnesota Key.
And Minnesota Key, right?
Yeah.
All along there. this is where we would assume whatever maximum surge they're going to get, this is it. Now, it's going to continue for a while because this is going to go inland like this, and we're going to continue with an onshore push, and the tide is coming in.
Well, I wanted to ask you this. I was just talking about the negative surge in Tampa Bay, which there's a lot of different ways you can measure that. You and I were just talking about that. But a lot of my friends are messaging me the fear in Irma when things just emptied out. This isn't that. But there would be this big slosh back. Because of this angle, that appears kind of unlikely with this one.
Yeah, so we actually have that same graphic that you were going to, I was going to talk about that. But here we are with the winds around the Tampa Bay area, pushing the water out of the bay here and pushing the water away from the coast. So one very important headline that we've been talking about the last few hours is that feared surge along the beaches there. We have so much debris and so forth. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That in Pinellas. Now, where we also have a lot of debris along the beaches in Lido Key and on the south, that probably is happening. That looks bad.
And we don't necessarily have a measurement.
No, we don't have any measurement. The NOAA tide gauges are either in Tampa Bay or Fort Myers and Naples, and there's that big gap on the coast where we don't have good measurements. We have that creek that goes into Sarasota Bay in Sarasota that showed 8 or 9 feet of rise, but that's probably freshwater, if it's true, first of all, freshwater and saltwater working against each other.
We had said, what, 7.5 inches of rain somewhere close by to that.
Yeah, right, exactly. So no doubt that's part of it. So here's what you were showing before, and this is water compared to high tide, which is a little bit different here. Look, you can look here. We can see it right there. So this is at Port Manatee, which down here. So it's about 1/2 foot below normal high tide, but it actually, when we look at the gauge here, it really is right about the predicted tide, but the predicted tides these days are always too low.
Yeah.
Right? The prediction of the computers is always about 1 foot, 1/2 foot, 1/2 foot to 1 foot, too low this time of year. So right now, this wind seems to be pushing the water out about I don't know, 1.5 feet or something.
That's still a function of being in king tide season?
Yeah, well, I mean, the predicted tides were not done for the modern climate, so all the predicted tides are a little bit too low.
Okay.
We always have an extra layer there from the superheated Gulf waters and, other issues. So anyway, that's what's going on here now. And so up here, it's interesting. I mean, tides are the craziest thing. Exactly how they work with the land and the water moving and so forth. But to be 3.2 feet above or below normal high tide, way up in Hillsborough Bay up there, it's. Yeah. I guess it's because if you think about it, all this water is moving down here and it's pulling it out of the bay, and it can't refill in the bay. Right? Where if you're down in here somewhere, if you pull this water out, you've got more water to come in and fill in behind it.
It's amazing to consider that I think for inside the bay, I think for the Hillsborough Bay gauge, high tide was something a little bit past 10 p.m. So the water should be getting higher. It's getting lower.
Yeah,
there's the reverse happening. And last week, 2 weeks ago, when I was on St. Pete Beach, we were getting closer to low tide. The water was coming up. So it shows you how powerful storm surge truly is.
So you asked the question, though. It was a very good question. So in Irma,
a lot of debris going down the road or anything. Of course, we're mindful. I'm here with one of our photojournalists and another reporter, so we're all keeping an eye out for each other. But I want to show you behind, if you can see, Randy, the stop sign moving, in the wind here, and the rain just coming down almost horizontal at this point. It also, you can see a light right now. We saw neighbors across the street come out with an actual flashlight just to take a look. But the reality is this whole area that we're in immediately in Sarasota has lost power. I'm holding my earpiece so I can continue to hear you guys. But just down the road, not the entire area has lost power. But we are, of course, right now in an extreme wind area. We're told that this is going through until 9:30. But as we have gone around, fortunately, earlier today, you guys, a lot of people in this area, they were expecting the wind. They were boarded up. They had their different storm preparations. And so this is an area, just to give you guys an idea, we are not in an evacuation zone right now, but we are again in an extreme wind area. It was about a couple hours ago now that in fact the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office said nobody else is going out. Emergency responders, it is too late at this point for us to come out to you because of the conditions of the road. And what you can see right now in terms of the extreme wind, it's just too dangerous. So as we were listening to Michael Paluska and Chad Mills and how calm it was in their area, you can see that that's certainly not the case here, as it is, the wind is starting to tell us. Again, this is the strongest that we have experienced right now.
What do we get? We get a north wind there, and maybe eventually the wind just fills in behind it, but we don't get that.
I imagine that's what you've been contending with here
wind
for the last
change
few minutes.
that can slam.
Let's get back in here to the studio because we really want to focus on the radar at this point. We were just talking about, yes, landfall officially at Siesta Key here from the National Hurricane Center, and the eye wall, the northern eye wall, is unfortunately where the worst of the weather is, and it is in the most populated part here of Tampa Bay, in Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete. So Hillsborough and Pinellas County, this is where our worst is going to be here, and it will continue this way for the next couple of hours. We've got the strongest winds that we've seen so far from the system moving into Tampa. If you were with us 10-15 minutes ago, we took a power hit here at the station, thankfully getting things back online for you so we can continue to cover this storm for you. But again, downtown St. Pete, Gulfport, Boca Ciega, St. Pete Beach, Paso Grill, Treasure Island, Johns Pass, Madeira Beach. This is the worst of the wind and the rain. The surge is staying to our south. We could see a little bit of bay surge with this northeast wind coming into downtown St. Pete because we have winds coming in from the opposite direction. That could push some of the water up here and give us a little bit of surge, but it doesn't appear that we're seeing water rises happen pretty rapidly at this point now in Tampa Bay. Where we're seeing the highest water rises are, of course, down to the south of the eye wall. So we're just stuck. We are completely stuck right now in this band, and look how slow it is moving to the east. While the storm itself is moving at about 15 miles per hour to the northeast, the band is about 70 to 80 miles wide. It starts here in Thonotosassa, Plant City, and Lakeland, and it goes all the way out into the Gulf of Mexico here from Anna Maria Island up to Paso Grill. And with the storm moving in this direction, that means this is all going to slowly move in this direction and put us, unfortunately, in the spot where we could see up to 1 foot to 2 feet of rain. Well, we've already had 1 foot in portions of St. Pete and also Pinellas County. We're possibly going to add another 6 to 12 inches of rainfall on top of what we've had. So again, freshwater flooding and extreme concern for us here as we're looking at the new flood warning that came out, and the National Weather Service tags them with what type of threat is in the warning, and this is a considerable threat. So it's a pretty heightened risk that we're likely seeing some flash flooding. So in Palm Harbor, Tarpon Springs, Clearwater, still locked into the rainfall. The strongest part of the eye wall is now in St. Pete. Look at this, Pinellas Point. My goodness, this is about as red as it gets on the radar when we're talking about extremely heavy rainfall. These rainfall rates could be upwards of 4 to 6 inches per hour within this northern eye wall. That's also the case here at MacDill Air Force Base in South Tampa, most of which, of course, was evacuated because of the threat for surge if the eye would have made landfall to our north. But we're locked in downtown Tampa with it right now as well, completely covered up in extremely heavy rainfall and wind gusts that could exceed 80 miles per hour. Again, the strongest that we've had so far was at the eye wall. Just updated with Tampa International now, 74 mile per hour gusts here at the airport. That could potentially been the gust that knocked us briefly without power here. So hurricane force gusts with this eye wall now in Tampa, the strongest winds we've had so far in Tampa. If you are east of Tampa, you are in the northern eye wall as well. Riverview, Gibsonton, Palm River, over towards the Palm Eau Claire area, Valrico, Brandon, over to Plant City, Mango, Seffner, all along I-4, getting up to Thonotosassa and up toward the Hillsborough River State Park. It's just really starting for you all as that eye wall is all the way back out into the Gulf of Mexico. So we're stuck in this heavy rain band for the next 3 to 4 hour period, and that's why that flash flooding potential is going to be extremely high. When we talked about the extreme wind warning, when it comes to flash flood emergencies are what the National Weather Service issues as far as it being the top tier for severity and danger when it comes to flash flooding. I can't imagine that we're not going to start to get those from the National Weather Service here over the next few hours. Flash flood emergencies possibly coming to St. Pete, Clearwater, Tampa, and then areas to the east. Lakeland, you are on the northeastern edge of the eye wall. It's continuing to fill in here as well. So we're locked in with the heavy rainfall. Your wind gusts will probably start to pick up. We've already had 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts at Linder International Airport. We'll likely get to the 75-mile-per-hour gusts here like in Tampa coming up momentarily. So widening out, the worst of the rainfall, the worst of the wind is in this band right here that's basically parked itself from Seffner, Brandon to Tampa, Plant City as well, and then down into central and southern portions here of St. Petersburg. This is where we're looking at rainfall rates again that could exceed 4 to 6 inches of rainfall per hour. We are
Brooksville gusted is 76.
So even up to Brooksville, we're seeing hurricane force gusts.
76 mile per hour wind gusts. That is the second time they've gusted over 70.
So 70 mile per hour plus wind gusts here in Brooksville, that far removed from the eye wall. And this is why, unfortunately, those power outage numbers are really going to start to crank as we go into the remainder of the night. Flash flooding also a concern for those of you north. Look at south. Look at how dry it is in our southern zones where the eye actually has come on shore and will be moving. It's going to be incredibly different to see the gradient between not much rain down south to the extreme rainfall weights that we're seeing here up north with this eye wall basically moving right along I-4. And this is panning out pretty much how the National Hurricane Center and what we were thinking would happen with this is if it makes landfall in Sarasota, Manatee County, that northern eye wall would set up that potential 6 to 12 to 18-inch water rainfall totals, and that's unfortunately what is coming to fruition. So I think once we get past the severe and dangerous wind threat with the eye wall, it's really going to be about flash flooding and water rises that are happening not from storm surge here from Pinellas and Hillsborough County north, but unfortunately because of the water rising on our creeks, our rivers, our streams. All of these are going to start rising pretty rapidly, and that's why we have the warnings out. I'm going to turn the warnings back on. There are going to be a bunch of them that show up. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Thankfully, I'm not seeing any spin or tornado warnings showing up at this point. It's bad enough when you're contending with 70 to 100 mile per hour winds. Remember, the extreme wind warning set to go for another 45 minutes. We'll see if they do extend it east as the eye wall begins to move to the east. But again, the worst of it is right now moving through Tampa Bay, Pinellas, Hillsborough County, getting over to Polk County. Not forgetting you in Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus. You guys are socked in with very heavy rainfall here as well. But when it comes to the winds, that's where we're seeing them the strongest. And that's going to continue as it slides to the east and to the northeast. Greg, are you seeing anything that I'm missing so far?
No, I mean, I'm concerned about this rain band, obviously. I think that rain band in south of there is where there's going to be a new center that's going to reform, and this is just going to keep this in Hillsborough County. It's going to start moving northeast. The winds here are going to be locked in for at least another couple more hours.
So you're talking about it potentially here, basically right along I-75, I-275, where they come together, and then to areas north and east. So what Greg is talking about is basically what we were looking at. This is the zone right in here that is going to run into extreme rainfall totals that could exceed a foot, if not a foot and a half, maybe closing in on 20 inches if we do not get this band to start moving off to the east-northeast pretty quickly. So that's the band that's the worst of it right now. And of course, within it, we've got the winds that are really, really strong too. I'm going to just do a couple of plots here just to see what shows up. Let me pause this for us, see what we're looking at. These winds should start to come down a little bit, though, now that we're seeing it moving onshore. But clearly, what we're looking at is these are the wind heights that are elevated. This is not what's actually happening down at the ground. So you take about 5 to 10 miles per hour off of these. So either way you look at it, we're still looking at Category 2 winds showing up on our radar. But as it's moving onshore, of course, it made landfall with 120 mile per hour winds here in Siesta Key from the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, giving us that information as well. Power outages, we are looking at. Let's go ahead and take a live look outside here in Tampa right now where we're seeing this rain band set up over top of us as well. This band is sitting over, is that in Ybor City? Is that downtown? He's in where? Hyde Park. So that's in Hyde Park. So that's what it looks like. They're getting the camera shot ready for us as the rain is coming down in Hyde Park. Surprising that we still have power there because those power outage numbers.
Through what's evolved here.
Hey, Steve, so I came up north through Sarasota, and when I was coming through Sarasota, like the Bank of America lost its roof. Numerous little, small, like restaurants, mom-and-pop restaurants had roof damage. These winds have been incredibly strong.
And it looks like it's just the rain is pretty intense, right? Adam?
We got lots of rain and lots of wind. Let me just step out here for a minute, and you can kind of see how it's coming down and how it's getting pretty gusty. It's certainly taken a turn for the worse in the last half hour or so. Really coming down. It's been coming down all day, but it's really intensified in the last few minutes, and we're getting these squalls of wind along with it. We've seen the power blink on and off quite a few times, so we're not sure how much longer we'll have power here, but we're here at Hyde Park. More or less abandoned. Only our hotel has anybody here right now. But we have certainly seen the rain and the wind pick up quite a bit in the last few minutes as this storm is getting closer to Tampa, and it certainly has intensified quite a bit. You can see from these pictures, the wall's just kind of screaming in. This rain is kind of coming in. We're in a protected area right here. For those of you familiar with the Hyde Park Village, there's big parking garages right here, but the wind is still whipping along that. And on these cross streets, we can see the wind just coming through there. Lots of water just coming down, just a wall of water as this rain continues to fall at a huge fast pace right now. So this is probably the worst conditions we've seen so far in the last few minutes, guys.
Yeah, we're going to continue to see that being the case here because, again, this eye wall, it's almost as if it's stationary. It's moving, but we're not seeing that water, that rain band move at this point. Also want to take a look at the radar again, show you what we're looking at because, again, very important, the worst of the weather happening right now, Hillsborough, Pinellas County, as the eye has made landfall to our south. I want to sneak over here into St. Petersburg because we have seen 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts here from St. Pete, and we do have Eric Waxler, who's out live in St. Petersburg in the northern eye wall. If we do have him, let's go ahead and get it out to him.
This wind just got compressed and ripped through this side. All right, now it finally ebbed out. Brandon, sorry, I wanted to show that to the people if that was at all possible, but normally when you and I talk, we talk about tornadic conditions. That's out in the Midwest, the plains. This has been a historic event for Florida. What's that been like for you as you've been navigating around trying to avoid that?
Well, it's definitely been difficult because we started our day actually up near Orlando, and we ended up chasing some of those tornadoes that happened on the eastern side of the state. And then when all this happened, it was very quick to change. Everything transitioned quickly to moving onshore a lot faster. I mean, it's almost 9 o'clock, and we've already had landfall, and it was forecasted at 1 or 2 a.m. So just as a testament to the speed of this and the dynamics of it, we got a few tornadoes off to the east. Thankfully, where we were at, we didn't see any damage, but then we came back west as quick as we could to cover the eye wall intercept out here on the west coast.
I tell you what, there's so many different impacts and hazards with this, and we know landfall is only one moment in this. Now that means the core of this system is over the peninsula, and it's creating some damage. So one of those important updates is Bradenton starting to see that onshore flow and the surge encroaching. Important updates from our exclusive Fox Weather Storm Tracker, Brandon Kopic. Thank you. We'll continue to check in with you. Let's take you to the eastern side of Florida and into Daytona Beach, where they've taken substantial rain and wind throughout the day. Fox Weather meteorologist Haley Meyer joins me now. Haley, I mean, I just took on the full fury of the northern eye wall. What have you got there with Daytona Beach?
Well, Steve, it's certainly not the fury of that northern eye wall, I will tell you that, but it has not been pleasant here. The winds have been howling, really started to pick up, I'd say about 3-4 o'clock Eastern time in Daytona, and they have yet to cease, only on the incline. Max wind gusts about an hour ago or so was about just shy of 50 miles per hour. I'm sure we're probably reaching that. More debris has been scattered around this area. What I've got here is a little Santa teddy bear. I gotta tell you, Steve, it came out of nowhere. Literally flew out of the sky. I mean, it was not attached to this palm tree up here. It was also not attached to this lamppost, and it's also not Christmas. So it was a little confusing where that came from, but it's the biggest debris piece that I've seen so far. So it's starting to get dangerous with things flying around. Not to mention with this wind, we also have the palm trees. I mean, it might be hard to see this, but they are swinging really, really violently. And as the winds continue to pick up, that becomes a bigger concern here with power outages. Currently in Volusia County, we've got about 2% of the county without power. That's when I checked before I stepped out of the car about 20 minutes or so ago. That's about 7,000 customers. I think in total they track about over 300,000. So not bad for Volusia County, but again, the strongest wind gusts still yet to come as Milton officially made landfall. But I gotta tell you, Steve, I heard two good things tonight, and I always have to say the stuff about the silver lining. One, I'm glad your family was safe. I mean, that was a scary situation. And number two, I'm glad that that landfall was a little to the south of Tampa, specifically for Tampa's sake. However, for a spot like Sarasota, down towards Fort Myers, that storm surge is not going to be good. As far as storm surge is here in Daytona, we have that storm surge warning up to 5 feet. We're on the incline now waiting for high tide. That's going to be just after 1 o'clock in the morning. So you also might not be able to see, but we're right by Daytona Beach Pier is where we're on. And there's a ramp where boats and things can get in and out of the water. So we've been watching that closely to see if that tide comes in. Now, contrary to what Ian experienced out on St. Pete Beach whenever Helene came in just about 2 weeks ago, he said when the low tide came, the waters kept rising. It was actually the opposite effect here. Low tide came and the water did recede, which is good news. But unfortunately, with the early arrival here,
we're not seeing it. It makes a lot of sense. So, Eric, thank you very much. We'll check back. Just so you know, we're looking at it. You probably have another 60 to 90 minutes of that before things begin to wind down. At least you've reached the peak, though. I don't imagine it's going to be any stronger than that because that eye has moved inland, so it should start weakening even quicker. Again, Eric Waxlow, thank you very much, live in St. Pete. So here's the latest, guys. We got a lot of stuff to go over. Landfall, Siesta Key, down to the south. What we were saying is you have a offshore flow. What that means for the bay, we have a reverse surge going on. In other words, the water is going out. And with that being said, that makes it a lot more challenging for flooding to occur because there's obviously no kind of backup at all. When that water drains, it's got plenty of spots to go. Whereas if you had an onshore flow, when the water tries to drain, it runs into literally reverse flow and it can't happen and we get a lot of flooding. So with this offshore flow, because the low is here, and fortunately, it's substantially inland. I mean, to the south, rather. So, 4 hours ago, this is just a perfect example of how fickle wobbles can be when it comes to these storms. I mean, it was going north, and then it moved a little bit. And I'll be honest, literally us in the Weather Center, Jason and I had this exact conversation. It's like, okay, it's got to make a hard right turn to actually make landfall anywhere near Sarasota. It made a hard right turn. I mean, and it's just one of those things where none of the models are going to show that because it's unpredictable. That's why it's called nowcasting. So at this point, there's your eye. It has moved inland. So think about it. All of the areas to the north have an offshore flow. Now, eventually, when it moves north up here, it's going to eventually bring back an onshore flow. But by then, it's more than likely far enough away and weaker that I would expect, Greg, I mean, don't you guys agree that the surge levels of 6 to 9 might even be high? Yeah. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, so we've been saying this for hours. It all boiled down to just how close that center gets to the bay, and it's pretty far south of Sarasota, Siesta Key. Now, it is going to move this way, but as it does, it's going to weaken. So I'll tell you guys, it's hard to say we dodged a bullet considering what we are looking at in terms of all of the wind. There are trees down. There is flooding. There will be a lot of surge areas south. Sarasota, Siesta Key, Fort Myers, all the way down to Naples. They've been getting surge for a while. But the bay, the surge threat in the bay is significantly lower now. In 3 hours, that's how it changed. And I'm not trying to make light of it at all, but we were sitting here debating, did the Bay Area escape a direct hit from a Category 3 hurricane? I guess it's, do you define Siesta Key as in the Bay Area? It's close, right? I don't know. People smarter than me can figure that one out. But anyway, so we still have that extreme wind warning in effect until 9:30. Now, I think it's very possible that that could be moved to the east. I mean, it seems like it's a possibility. But you've got Pinellas County with a foot of rain so far, and what, another 6 inches easy possible before this finally moves through. You've got winds gusting anywhere from 80 to nearly 100 miles an hour. Sarah, I believe we said that Siesta Key had 120 mile an hour winds at landfall. That's what I heard. I don't I didn't get that from an actual report, but I believe that's what the NHC had reported. So that would be by far, and it makes sense because how many times did we say right at landfall? And usually just to the right and north of that landfall spot is where you get the extreme winds. So with that being said, you have two areas of wind. You've got one near the eye moving across, and then you have this massive eye wall that's bringing all of this heavy rain and all of these gusty winds. There will be roof issues. We wake up tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of trees down. There's going to be a lot of issues with roofs. But boy, at least in terms of the surge for our immediate area, we're escaping. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to say it. I mean, I think we are. I mean, is it possible the Indian Burial Ground pulled their magic again for the surge? I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's looking pretty good for the surge threat now. It really is. As you continue to see this move from north to east, look, it's going to continue, and it's going to continue for quite a while. So for the folks who evacuated to Orlando, you're going to get hurricane force winds. And I know there's a lot of folks watching us right now on streaming. And since there's 250,000 people without power, let's remind people how you can watch or listen to us even. And you have no connection to the world. So here are our radio partners. You can tune in and they'll be simulcasting our coverage. And in addition, you can also download our ABC Action News app. That's either on Google Play or on iTunes. You do that, you can actually watch our coverage. On the radio, it's fine if you don't have the ability to download it, but you don't get to see what it is we're showing. And radar, seeing the radar can be super helpful. But down where landfall occurred, right here, as Chad and Michael showed you, it's quiet. Wouldn't be surprised if the stars are out in some spots, but yeah, they're still getting wind, but just not nearly as much on the backside. Jason, you got something?
St. Pete gusted to 94, and we have Tampa International that has gusted now to 82.
All right. And you know what? I think those numbers are going to be kind of solid. I think they're going to probably be our maxes. Would you not agree, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's what it looks like right now here at our station. And our roof is popping because of the winds that are going over it. So, yeah.
And I will share a funny story since I made fun of Wendy. I made fun of Wendy because she was talking about golf ball size raindrops in one of the live shots with Lydia.
And anyone from up north, I'm getting emails and Facebook messages saying we knew exactly what you meant. And we support you.
Yeah, okay.
He just doesn't understand.
Yeah, they just don't have the heart to make fun of you. All right, so yeah, golf ball size raindrops. Well, what I said might have been worse because Greg's over in the Weather Center and the lights are moving because obviously we're in a hurricane. The lights are moving pretty good. And I walked over and I look at Greg and he's like, Dennis, the lights are moving like this. And my response was, what, is it windy? And I was serious. And I will tell you why. I used to work in Los Angeles. And when I think of lights moving, I think earthquake. I'm like, all right, you're going to throw an earthquake in here too, then I give up. All right, so, but at the end of the day here, obviously we are still tracking some real significant weather. And we're going to go to our reporters and we're going to continue covering this. And we are by no means breathing a sigh of relief. But with the surge, I mean, I guess you could say we're breathing a sigh of relief because the levels with a storm this far south and an offshore flow are significantly lower than they would be. As a matter of fact, a reverse surge is going on, and it would not shock me at all if we get some people who are out there and they see the bay pretty much dry, like we had with Irma. I believe we're going to go to Jenna Ray.
Yes, she's in Ybor City.
In Ybor City with an update on how things are popping in Ybor. Jenna?
Hi, you guys. You can hear and probably see this wind behind me. This rain is whipping. We were out here an hour ago and it was not nearly this intense. Take a look at the street behind me. You can really see how fast and hard this wind is whipping this rain. Just a few seconds before you guys tossed to me, we did see the lights flicker. That's about the second time in the last hour that we've seen that. Again, in Ybor City, we still have power at the moment, but as this wind is picking blowing up. Obviously, that becomes a threat for a lot of people here. Now, we've been talking to people in the hotel that we're staying at. A lot of Tampa residents are actually staying at this hotel. A lot of people from St. Pete and from the coast, they came in more inland for the storm ahead of it. A couple that I talked to, they spend half of their time here in Tampa and another half in the Midwest, and they say that they just went through Helene obviously a few weeks ago, and they said that it scared them. They were out of power, and so they made the move to evacuate for this hurricane, and they think that they made the right decision. Obviously, we still have power now, but you're seeing as this makes landfall the impact that this is having here. Again, we almost have horizontal rain whipping at us at this intersection. You can see, I mean, this intersection, it's almost crazy to picture and to see. I hope it comes across as intense as it is that we're seeing out here with this whipping rain. The trees are whipping back and forth. We're seeing tree branches being pulled off of the trees. Now, a lot of businesses in this area did prepare ahead of the storm, and you can see some of these boarded up businesses across the street from where we're at. A lot of businesses in Ybor City look like this now. Boarded up windows, boarded up doors. A lot of them have that sandbag reinforcement. We're also seeing some lightning. We haven't seen that here yet, but again, within the last hour, as this storm has ramped up, we're seeing these more intense effects of the hurricane coming in here. We are in a safe location. We are not in an evacuation zone. So as you guys mentioned, with the weather forecasting and what's coming forward, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see this whipping rain and this wind coming in as this continues to intensify.
All right, Jenna, thank you. We actually just took a power hit here as well. So, you know, you're not alone out there. We're not alone here. Of course, many counties in our area are actually out of power completely. So thank you, Jenna. We want to turn now to Pinellas County, where the winds have been picking up out there, as many of our counties have seen.
Yeah, truly. ABC Action News reporter Robert Boyd is live for us in Seminole right now. Robert, how are conditions there where you are?
Well, me and the crew have been in Seminole, in Pinellas County most of the day, and this is the worst we've seen it by far. This minivan right next to me, every few minutes you actually see it kind of shaking back and forth. That's how powerful the wind has been. Trees just swaying back and forth. Stop signs rattling. We're hoping nothing comes loose and goes flying. Right there, that's a pretty big wind gust that just hit me. The good news is hardly any projectiles. I haven't seen much of anything flying that could hit us, which is good. That means the people who live in this neighborhood batten down the hatches. They put everything away. They got the patio furniture. They got all the lawn ornaments. They put it away. That's good news. So right now, nothing really flying around, which is good. We're watching the trees go back and forth. As far as power outages, I think Dennis, I don't want to get this wrong, I think he said a 250,000 people without power. We'll count us in on that 250,000 because the Airbnb that me and the team were staying in lost power hours ago, probably around 6 o'clock. Most of this neighborhood is dark, and then we see these flashes of light in the distance. It's not lighting, it's just again more power outages, more electrical explosions. So right now, very dangerous out here. We feel safe though because this area is, despite as crazy as it looks, was not an evacuation zone. They let the people stay here. For the most part, everyone's inside. I don't think I've seen a car drive by in about an hour or so. So people are staying safe, staying inside, and that's a good thing. And keep in mind, Pinellas County emergency, any kind of first responder, they're staying inside too. So if there's any kind of emergency out here, you're kind of on your own. So please stay safe. As tempting as it might be to even look out the window, you know, stay in a safe place in the middle of your home, away from windows, because the wind is coming, and you just don't know if something could break loose. Oh man, that was a big wind gust. You can see this van. I'm going to hold on to this van right now. I'm actually going to get a little closer to the garage and get back into safety. But right now, this is the strongest we've seen it all night long, and we'll be out here throughout the storm and continue to monitor it and just hope the people stay safe. Back to you guys.
All right, Robert. Yes, please stay safe. Get into a safer location if you can. Jason, go ahead.
Just want to give you
A little bit of information we're just getting in from the National Weather Service. While we're seeing the reverse surge happening in Tampa Bay where water levels are coming down, those east-facing beaches, so MacDill Air Force Base, Bayshore Boulevard, because of the east wind pushing out in the opposite direction, we are seeing some flooding on this side of South Tampa and also on this side of St. Pete and also Anna Maria Island. We're getting an east wind, which is actually causing a storm surge on the bay side. Now, as far as numbers go, we haven't gotten those numbers, but we are getting reports of flooding in those areas. So again, even though the surge maximized at highest to the south of our area with now very strong 80-90 mile per hour northeast winds, this is creating flooding on east-facing beaches, east-facing coastal spots here, I should say, from Anna Maria Island now north to St. Pete, also on Bayshore Boulevard in South Tampa near MacDill Air Force Base is where we're looking at some of that. So I just wanted to pass that along because we've been watching the storm surge so closely, and while we're not getting those 6 to 9 foot total rises in these areas, we haven't gotten any numbers yet from Sarasota or Manatee County as far as heights of surges go, but in Fort Myers Beach, storm surge there. Naples is seeing major flooding right now with storm surge down in Naples, so maximize to the south of the center.
Through these streets, I know you've covered a lot of storms here. It's impressive what a powerful major hurricane can do to a massive city like this. And I'll leave you with this. You've talked about 2017 Irma, that negative surge. We know on the backside, though, that water comes rushing back in fast. And when you combine that with the fresh water that's already fallen, I think flooding is going to be a big thing that we're going to be watching tomorrow morning as we daylight breaks here. And we'll bring you that coverage, of course, here from Tampa and all over.
Hey, Steve, you're getting the full experience here. And again, we always talk about how tropical systems present many different hazards, right? And I feel like because of what happened with Helene, there's a little bit of a celebratory response for folks that live immediately adjacent to the bay with the negative surge. But they are seeing exceptionally heavy rain right now. It's right behind you. And we're starting to see some big wind gusts from across the area. TPA, where you flew in, Tampa International Airport, 82 mile per hour wind gusts, 93 miles per hour at Sarasota Bradenton. Egmont Channel, that's where the pilots hang out to pilot the shipping vessels, the big boats, into Tampa Bay. There's this old lighthouse on Egmont Key. They've gusted now, Steve, to 103 miles per hour. As the crow flies, that's got to be something like, I don't know, 25 miles from you. And this is now saying, I'll have to check in with Sam, is that from Albert Whitted, downtown St. Pete? Because we now, on our top wind gusts up to 102 miles per hour, Steve, there's always that lag, and to your point, those power outage numbers are spiking fast.
Yeah, and Ian, we're still under that extreme wind warning. Everything you're telling me, I'm thinking, okay, that verified. Extreme wind warning for us here in Tampa and surrounding areas encompassing over 2.7 million people. That's because winds could get to 110. So you've said there on the Key, they got to 102. And these are the potential sustained winds at times. We know gusts can really throw north. You were bringing up some of those keys. By the way, we were in Lido Key yesterday. All that debris getting smacked right now and likely creating more damage in because of this big impressive surge from Milton.
Yeah, Steve, I'm seeing 64 mile per hour for a sustained wind at Albert Whitted in St. Petersburg and a gust up to 93. So I'll do a little bit more. Oh, it was at the Skyway Fishing Pier. So that's right at the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. They closed it at 45 miles per hour, as you were reporting earlier. Well, it's now gusted up over 100 miles per hour. Steve, great work out there. We'll be checking back in. We do want to keep it out in the field in the Tampa Bay area. We'll go just a touch farther to Bradenton. That's where we find Fox Weather correspondent Robert Ray. Robert, I checked your locator earlier because you had the Manatee River behind you, and it looked like it was the ocean.
Yeah, Ian, it did. It was the Manatee River. It was swelling. It was surging in, and then we had a huge pine tree fall right on one of our, it collapsed right by our vehicles. Part of it went inside of the truck where Lloyd Alford's camera is, and now we've moved. Stand by. We have moved inland off of there because it was not safe with the tree debris. And you see this roadway, my God, the the energy that's coming down this road right now, these wind gusts are remarkable. We still have power in this area. Power is going in and out. We've driven in this pocket, and I can tell you the stoplights are all swinging back and forth. It's very dangerous to even be here, but I'm shocked that there is still power. And when the wind gusts come in, you can see it is literally like warfare with the rain coming at the face. You got to have the glasses on at this point. It is remarkably dangerous at this point. We are flanked here by 2 roadways on each side. I can see in the distance stoplights that are swinging, and it is the ebb and flow of these wind gusts that are coming in. As we know, the landfall happened at 8:30 p.m. and now we are still getting the residuals of all of this. We thought that this would be one of the safest areas. We do not have trees particularly over us or power lines, and that is a good thing. And that is why we picked this location, just to show you the impacts right now here in Bradenton. As you see it coming in and feel it, and the sound rushing through, it's hard to imagine, it's hard to put this into words, but I hope the pictures are telling what's going on as mass power outages are occurring all across the peninsula. This is tough. These are huge winds right now, making their way in Milton, just wreaking havoc here in Bradenton and the Tampa area. And there is debris. I feel the vegetation coming off of trees in the distance, and they're popping and hitting the helmet. I can hear the pops in my ear. You probably can't hear that, but nonetheless, by far, these are the toughest winds we have felt all night long. And we thought when the tree fell and collapsed onto our trees that was bad enough. We tried to get down to the Gulf of Mexico. We drove, and at that point, it became so dangerous that our cars were rocking.
Okay, we're seeing some things blow up behind me, transformers. So the wind is definitely strong. It's interesting how, I mean, I guess it's perspective because the wind is blowing from a different direction, so you're feeling it in a different way. I know behind the house there is some damage. The wind blew down the fence behind the house earlier because the wind was coming from the north, and so again, the house shielding us earlier in our live reports. So behind the house there's damage. Now it's coming from the other direction, blowing not quite toward the house, but in this direction. And so...
Yeah, low center of gravity there. Robert, this is intense. 102 mile per hour gust. That's about 5 miles as the crow flies. I'm not sure where exactly you are in Bradenton, but if you go north-northwest, you get to the Skyway Fishing Pier. It's on the Manatee side, the Bradenton side of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. They actually opened that up. That was part of the old Skyway Bridge. They repurposed it after the tragedy that happened there in 1980. They're gusting up to 102 miles per hour. And again, that's got to be something 5 miles, maybe a touch less than that from where you're standing.
Be careful, buddy. Watch it. You answered the question, though. I was talking about how the winds were reversing now that the opposite side of the eye is coming in. And you are right now on the very extreme edge of the northern eye wall, that northwestern eye wall. And winds are still estimated at 80 to 90 miles per hour here in that. So, yes, you answered the question I was going to ask you. We're talking about the opposite wind direction. Appreciate it, buddy. Be safe out there while we continue to watch your shot. I do want to come back to me real fast, though, because I am seeing something that's a little bit of a concern here in Tampa and also on the east side of Tampa. So as we look at the radar, we're starting to see the eye wall rotate and kind of pivot a little more to the east now, but look at how bright.
43rd Street West and Manatee Avenue.
Okay.
And that's where we're at. Brown and Sons Funeral Home, right there behind me. Palm trees just getting whooped in front of this funeral home right here. And so that's our location. It's hard to tell exactly where we're at this point because of the darkness. But again, I am just shocked that there is still power in some of these areas. Of course, we've seen flashes where, you know, obviously transformers are going and then we see power come back on. And so I'm not sure, you know, it's great because the other area we were at, near the Manatee River, there was no power whatsoever. There goes, the power just went out again, at least over there, to my left, to your right. And now we've got a bit of a lull in the wind gusts, thankfully.
Yeah.
As I speak, it just pushes me back. I tell you guys,
Robert, I
this
know
is
it's
gonna
hard.
be-
I know it's hard for you to hear me. The answer, 7 miles as the crow flies from where that gust was recorded. Now, keep in mind, that was right in the middle of the mouth of Tampa Bay. Robert, you were there. I could hear it in your voice yesterday. Ian, Adalia, Debbie, Helene a couple weeks ago, and now clearly you're experiencing some of the very worst of Milton. How does this stack up?
Yeah.
I mean, we could see what's happening here.
Oh, this is as bad as I've experienced this hurricane season, by far. Nothing matches the wind gusts that we are enduring right now. And a bit of a lull, and believe me, it'll change. All you got to do is snap your finger and close your eyes, and it'll all change. There you go again. No doubt, this is the worst conditions we have experienced this hurricane season. Milton, menacing, absolutely menacing right now, whipping through Bradenton. Remarkable energy. Painful to stand out here in this, but you know something? If any first responders are watching, and anyone that's going to have to go into action tomorrow and monitor all of this, that's devastation that's going to occur, you know why there's damage, why there's catastrophic damage. There will be in areas. This is why we do this, to show the power of these hurricanes on Fox Weather. Whoa!
Robert, you always talk about this. You love weather. You love witnessing the power of Mother Nature. But like you were just talking about, you like to talk about why you do what you do. Because I'm sure there's some folks at home that are saying, what is this guy doing out there? You have Jared, a meteorologist, with you. You've been covering the weather for decades. You're doing so from a safe location. But the key here is, and like we see oftentimes when weather events turn tragic, seeing is believing. If you don't see it with your own eyes, it's harder to respect it. What's going on behind you, that's what an extreme wind warning looks like.
That is right, and that is why I'm standing here. Because you know something? First of all, this is an historic storm, and this is part of the documentation. And this will also hopefully show people to evacuate. This is, you just don't want to be in this. You don't want to be, imagine if your home is not structurally competent. And we're going to see a lot of those issues tomorrow, especially in mobile homes and on some of these beaches, power going in and out. But this is why we're showing the fury, the menacing fury of Milton. No doubt, the toughest winds I've experienced this entire season. I hope this is the end. Certainly for the peninsula of Florida, millions of people under a state of emergency, first responders getting ready, watching this coverage, monitoring the National Hurricane Center, the federal government looking, the state governments, the locals, and it's going to be a very long days ahead. And we're nowhere near, by the way, the end of Milton and its wrath as it moves in and goes in the interior and then on the Atlantic side. And let's not even forget coastal Georgia and potentially even South Carolina and some of what's going to happen. It's just a remarkable thing to be in here. And I can tell you right now, my quads are going to be real sore tomorrow. And I'm not trying to make light out of this. I'm just kind of talking my way through it, guys. Trying to make myself comfortable and get in the groove here. You know, that's what you got to do. You got to make yourself comfortable in the situations, otherwise you lose it. And that's what we're all doing. Fox Weather Beast illuminating the situation. I can't say enough about Lloyd Alford in the back of that vehicle and Jared Maloney, meteorologist, just looking at the track and the models and making sure that we are safe throughout this, and we're making the right turns and covering this so we're not near the surge. All of this team membership that we have here and everybody back in New York, this is what we do. We're trying to save lives by showing all this. I know I'll take criticism for standing out in this, sure, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Yes. Because somebody who sees this is now going to evacuate on the next storm if they never did again, and they're going to be able to hug their loved ones.
Yes, sir. There's some of that on the social medias. There's some of all of it, Robert. But the crew that you just mentioned is as good as they come. Send them my best. We'll give those aforementioned quads a break. We'll be checking back in with you coming up in just a few minutes. Robert Ray, outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, a Fox Weather alert. We do want to show you some live pictures. Again, different strategies. Same idea. This is from Nokomis. So we're back down into Sarasota County. These are remote cameras. Mark Suddeth does these. He's one of our exclusive Fox Weather storm trackers. Typically deploys a dozen of these. His style is to look from afar, but be able to see many different places. You can see the surge rising up through there, and that is coming up. I'm not sure where he put this camera, if that's a business or a home. That water is clearly rising. I'm not sure.
So big problem right now.
Well, yeah, especially statewide, 1.1 million. That's a lot of folks. It's an important reminder we want to tell you about. We want you to be able to reach us and stay in touch 24/7. During and after Hurricane Milton. So please scan that QR code on your screen to download our apps. This way you can stay connected to us even if you lose power or signal, and watch us on your phone. And to download our apps, just take out your cell phone and go to your app store, search for ABC Action News, and then just click on download. And once you are in the ABC Action News app, you'll actually see our live feed at the top of our homepage. And we want to stay in Tampa and cover what else is going on, especially in Hillsborough County.
Yeah, ABC Action News reporter Adam Walser is in Hyde Park for us. Adam, oh yikes, a lot of wind and rain, huh?
A lot of wind and rain. In fact, the hotel where we're staying just lost power a little while ago. They're on emergency backup power, and they were handing out glow sticks so that some of the guests could find their way back to their rooms. But we've been lucky so far. There's street lights here, so we can see what's going on, and you can see the rain continuing to come down. As we talked about in the last live shot, that is a big parking deck. It's about 5 stories high, so it's actually shielding us from a lot of the wind. But when you go to the intersection, there's basically a wind tunnel that's just sucking all that rain and all that wind. If you look up against that building, you can just see it flying through there. So it just kind of depends on where you're standing as to where the wind's whipping up. You know, we've gotten these gusts probably 70, 80 miles an hour like they were saying just a little while ago, but then we'll get just pelting rain and periods where there's not that much wind here. So it's continuing to fall. We've obviously gotten a huge amount of rainfall because it has not stopped the entire time we've been here since about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So obviously it's going to be a lot of rain here in Tampa for people to deal with. And all this rain is going down towards Tampa Bay. That's about a half a mile from here. All these smaller roads are draining onto Bayshore, so there's obviously going to be flash flooding in addition to the concern about the storm surge later on tonight. So it's something you don't want to be out in tonight. It's terrible conditions. We actually have seen people out here driving around, but it's extremely dangerous at this point because of these huge wind gusts and, of course, the rain standing on the road. I'm reporting live from Tampa. Adam Walser, ABC Action News.
Adam, thank you. We want to take a look at the conditions now outside our own station. Meteorologist Greg D is standing by. He's been inside for all of our coverage. He's finally now outside.
You needed to get outside, Greg. How are things looking out there?
You know, I've been looking at the radar all evening. I really wanted to see what this rain band is like as that center of Milton heads up into southern Hillsborough County. We're really getting, I think, what's going to be the maximum winds here in Tampa over the next couple of hours. So take a look out. We're in our parking garage. So just so you know, I am in a safe, shielded location from the wind. I got to tell you, the one thing that really stands out being out here is the sound. And if you've lost power at home, you know what I'm talking about. It is this constant roar of the rain and the wind. Now, the wind themselves, when you look up towards Ray J, at the top of the stadium, it's pretty steady. It's consistent at whatever speed it is there up there now, probably in that 50 to 60 mile an hour range. The gusts here at station level, when you look at the parking lot, they come and go. And that's related to how hard that rain is pushing the wind toward the surface. When you get a little bit more more of that rain pushing that wind funnel that's just above the ground down, you get a big gust and you can really see the wind start to move the trees. And at other moments, as I'm looking now here where our station truck is parked, the wind is not that bad. And that's kind of how it's been here since I've been here. Very inconsistent, coming in gusts. The gusts stronger at times than others. The rain is the other thing. I understand what Wendy was saying now with the golf ball size raindrops. That's exactly, Wendy, I mean, it is traveling up my arm. I've never had water do that, but literally is going up my sleeves. That's how, when I stick my arm out, you can literally feel the wind pushing the rain. And that's been the problem, the horizontal rain here. Just coming out here to this live location, there are doors already at our station that need to be barricaded, where there are towels and protective blankets, because the wind is literally pushing the rain through the door. It's not draining, it's just pushing it in any kind of gaps. And I bet a lot of folks in the Bay Area are seeing that. It's just the wind pushing the water in. These winds are going to hold on here for quite some time. Checking out the radar this evening, I think what's going to be happening here is over the next couple of hours, as Milton continues to move into southeastern Hillsborough County, this heavy rain band is really going to impact folks in places like Tampa, Riverview. I bet folks right now watching in Brandon, Mango, Dover, Plant City, Seffner, that's where some of the heaviest rain and wind is. Maybe starting to lighten up a little bit in Pinellas County. And now that main rain band with all the wind moving up toward portions of Polk County, Lakeland, over towards Gibsonia. My phone's going off. Another flash flood warning has been issued here across the Bay Area, and that's just something that's going to be going on. I just heard another wind gust. You can hear that. You can really hear the wind just watching it out here in between the building. It's the building that funnels the wind as well, really pushing that rain horizontally. So several more hours of this to go in the Tampa area, then we should see the wind lift east and northeast. And I think that highest wind core probably going to shift to the I-4 corridor and points north, as you see it swirling here around the studios. That's the latest here in Midtown Tampa at our studios. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
Greg, I do want to ask you a question, and if you can't answer it, maybe Jason or Dennis can. I'm getting quite a few emails from a lot of folks about the timing. You mentioned it's going to be a couple hours in Hillsborough County, for instance, that this is going to take. But I have folks in Hernando, Citrus, Pinellas asking how long do we have to hang in there, because some of them still have power and they're like, if this is going to last any longer, I'm going to lose power any minute. So do you have any idea based on what the radar looks like now?
Well, you know, incredibly, Wendy, we've been kind of talking about this in the Weather Center all evening. Brooksville has gusted over 70 miles per hour with a top gust of 76. 3 times, I believe, in this storm. They're nowhere near the eye. So if they're already gusting to 76, it's going to be several more hours before the center moves far enough away from Hernando County to really see those winds drop. Now, if you look at places like northeastern Hillsborough County, where the heaviest of the weather is moving in, Thornado-Sassa, back over towards New Tampa, that USF area, heading over towards Zephyr Hills, that 301 corridor, heading up past the Hillsborough River State Park on your way into Pasco County, that area is in the worst of it now. You're looking at 2 to 3 hours. So for those of you that are going to be close to the eye, on the northwest side of that eye, the worst of it is about 2 to 3 hours. For folks farther north, Citrus and Hernando County, Pasco, it's going to be longer than that. This is going to be a really long night for some folks, as this thing is really slowing down, guys.
All right, thank you, Greg. Let's go now to Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips, because Dennis, what Greg was just saying, we are not even close to over.
We're not. And overall, right now, surge is the lowest threat, which is insane to think of, considering I think a lot of us, myself included, thought it would be ultimately the biggest threat. There is some flooding going on the east side of areas in the bay, because you're getting the reverse surge. The water is being pushed out of the bay, and a landmass like South Tampa that can actually block that wind, that west wind blowing everything out, of the east wind rather, blowing everything out, and it will flood. So we are getting some reports, but overall, compared to what they will and are seeing south of Sarasota and Fort Myers, I don't want to say we dodged a bullet. I can't say that, because certainly we have right now a flash flood emergency in effect. When the Weather Service starts using words like catastrophic flooding, that gets our attention, and your phone probably just went off if you live in Pinellas or Hillsborough County. because that was just issued. 10 to 14 inches of rain so far, and there's still a lot more on the way. I mean, the eye is right here. It's moving in this direction, and eventually it will take this northwestern side of the eye wall with it, but not before they see another 4 to 6 inches of rain. So we're going to see some areas that are going to see 20 inches of rain. There is only one thing that helps a lot with this, and that is that same offshore flow. Because if water was being pushed in, there'd be nowhere for this rain to go, and it would back up, and we would see catastrophic flooding. I'm not saying we're not seeing it now, but I'm saying the fact that this flow is still significantly offshore, that will allow the water to drain instead of backing up. So that is one favorable thing in how things are setting up right now. In fact, that's an area right here. I can't zoom in on it. Let's go ahead and go over to, okay, yeah, Jason can walk on over there. So you've got this area in red, and that is where the reports of catastrophic flooding are occurring right now with 10 to 14 inches of rain. So the red diamond right there, there it is until 2:30 in the morning. Radar indicated catastrophic. Now that's an interesting setup, because this means this is not reports from people. This is not somebody calling the Weather Service saying, yikes, I'm flooding. This is just the Weather Service saying, man, you guys have had 10 to 14 inches of rain. This is crazy. There's got to be some serious flooding. And I'm sure there is. But again, my point is it could be even worse than actually it would have been if the flow had been onshore. So this will continue for another 5 hours because this rain is going to take quite a while to go through. I want to talk about our inland counties, because at this point, that's where a lot of the questions are. Where is Polk County going to get rain, and how much wind are they going to see? And what about Highlands County? And what about areas toward Orlando? Well, there's a weather phenomenon, and I won't get too sciencey with you, but it's known as a sting jet. And what that does is when a system like ours, which was tropical, transitions to a non-tropical system, a winter-type storm, you often have a rush of air that comes in behind it. And that rush of air can easily go 70, 80, maybe even 90 miles an hour. So I really think that the I-4 corridor, even though the eye of the storm, I would probably guess this is going to be Cat 3 soon, now that the eye has actually moved over land. Two, rather. Yeah, I mean, if it goes down to 110, we haven't seen it yet. What's the latest on it?
By the way, 16 inches of rain now at Albert Whitted Airport, coming in from the National Weather Service. Wind-wise.
Got to talk it louder, Ileana. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, winds at 115.
All right, winds are 115, so we're down another 5 miles an hour. So 5 more, and we're down to a Category 2 storm. And rain is certainly falling. Look, Polk County is not really getting all that much in terms of what's compared to Hillsborough and Pinellas, but it's on the way. So as we go through the next hour, we're going to continue to track the rain as it moves east. We're going to continue to track the wind. But I'd say if you live in Pinellas, in terms of the wind, the worst is approaching it being over. I mean, I'm not saying all of it, but, you know, we've now expired. Matter of fact, yeah, Jason's gone. I think he's gone. But the high wind warning was set, the extreme wind warning was set to expire at 9:30, and we're at 9:34. So I'll tell you what, let me toss it back to LSG and Wendy. I'm going to check from the Weather Service and see if we actually have seen that expired or extended or moved over to the east. So let's go on back to the anchor desk.
Yeah, Dennis, and you were talking about Polk County, and actually we have our own Mary O'Connell, who's actually in Lakeland right now, and you wanted to know what the weather and, you know, rain and wind was like out there. So Mary, do we have your live shot up? There we go. Take it away, Mary.
Hey guys, yeah, this is certainly the worst that we've seen since we've been here earlier this afternoon, and that's to be expected at this point. It's really windy. You can see over my shoulder here. This is kind of the only glimpse of light we have because the other street over is mighty dark out there, but you can see rain is blowing sideways. We've seen some of these tree branches fall to the ground here. It appears that some of these houses still have power. We've seen some lights in the distance go off. We still have power here, but you can see it's pretty nasty outside here. I know Polk County officials said a lot of people did go to shelters here, which is obviously a good sign that people were taking it very seriously here in this area. And obviously we're just keeping an eye on this rain here because it has been an absolute downpour in this area for the last several hours, guys.
All right, thank you, Mary. We want to go down to our southern counties, move back to Manatee County and the Palmetto area.
Yeah, and that's where Katie Legrone has been all evening long. So, Katie, how is it?
Yeah, hey guys, we're dealing with a lot of gusty winds again, but I will tell you, and some rain, quite a bit of rain at this point, but it's kind of coming in squalls. However, this is actually the most comfortable I have felt standing outside of the garage of the home that we're staying in really the last probably hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, it was pretty ferocious there for a while. And so from what I understand, in fact, I even asked our producer, what's going on in Palmetto, because we're just getting these gusts of winds yet again and this rainfall. And so this is the back edge of Hurricane Milton. I mean, this is the residual effect of Hurricane Milton coming into Palmetto. And of course, remember, Palmetto is sandwiched in between St. Petersburg to the north, Sarasota, Bradenton to the south, and we are on the east side of 75, so we are pretty good inland. In fact, there's 2 shelters that are just up the street. Matt, if you want to go ahead and pan over, you can see, if you can see in the distance, there's all those cars. That's actually a middle school, and adjacent to that is an elementary school, both of them packed with people, upwards of 1,000 plus in each shelter in each of those schools. So certainly people have heeded the warning. They've heeded the advice to leave. This area, Palmetto, of course, is a coastal community. Almost nearly all of it was under evacuation zones. But right now we're just getting kind of that back end of the storm. And, you know, you can see across the street, you know, the power still at least appears to be on. I mean, there's a couple homes that look pretty dark, but we're not quite sure if that's just because they're all boarded up. This is a neighborhood where we are located. In this neighborhood, every single home has either boards up or shutters up. I did end up talking to the folks in that home across the street earlier this evening, and they actually are not the homeowners. They're actually here seeking shelter from nearby town Ellington, just up the road. But right now we have these gusts of winds, but you know, it sort of reminds me a little bit of what we dealt with earlier in the evening when we first started to really feel the gust for the first time, but it is the first time in a while that I have felt comfortable actually standing outside bringing this live shot. Before, if you recall, we've actually been, we're just a few steps inside this garage. We even had a portion of the garage door down, you know, about a halfway or so, just a little under a halfway, because we were feeling these gusts of winds so ferociously in this area. Guys, that's the very latest. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Katie. We turn now to Tampa, and that's where our Scripps reporter Jenna Ray joins us live in Ybor City.
Yeah, it's just about 9:40 here tonight. Jenna, how's it looking out there?
It's definitely intensifying. I talked to you guys about 45 minutes ago. It was intensifying then, and now it's intensifying again. Take a look. These winds are just insane out here. You can see the rain being carried by this intense wind. It is whipping across the street. We've got palm trees ahead of us whipping back and forth. It almost looks like this rain is moving circular. It's crazy. It's going horizontal. Over the last few minutes, we've seen several transformers nearby and on this block blow. We've had huge, not explosions, but it looks like an explosion of this massive blue light that we're seeing in the sky. A loud noise for a few minutes. The power did go out here at the hotel that we are staying at. Elevators, people were actually in the elevators when that happened. The elevator doors got stuck shut, but luckily the power was able to turn back on. As you can see, the lights are still on here in Ybor City despite this crazy wind and rain that we are experiencing. A lot of people staying in this hotel behind me are actually from the Tampa area. A lot of them living closer to the shoreline, closer to the coast. They wanted to come inland to kind of brace for Hurricane Milton, and they say that they're doing just that. that. Again, we still have power, but those winds are definitely intensifying, and we're seeing those effects with transformers blowing. But for right now, the block that we're standing on, and as far as I can see, there is still power up where we are.
All right. Thank you. We'll check back with you in a bit. We want to stay in our southern counties where the strong winds are coming into Sarasota County as well.
Yeah, and that's where we find ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska. So, Mike, last time we talked with you. Okay, yeah, last time we talked with you, you were in the eye.
Yeah, we're here.
I mean, incredible to witness that. So what is it like for you now? Are you getting what Katie was getting in Palmetto?
Yeah, in fact, we were just setting up because, I mean, we were relaxing. I mean, I wouldn't say relaxing, taking a little bit of a break, and it just started just going. So we actually had to go to the back of the house. I'm going to have my photographer just come out real quick so he doesn't get hammered by this wind. But this is a tree that we've been worried about the entire time. Look at this pine tree. This is what we've been worried about. A couple of limbs came off earlier during the eye wall, and it actually landed right where Reed's backing up into, right by the door. So now everything here is coming from the northwest. So we have a huge building. Reed's under a patio, so he's good. I want to show you that tree real quick. But it was really crazy because with the eye, it was so weird because we didn't have anything. So now you can see it. I'll step out of the way. We'll show you some of these trees here. I mean, it is absolutely howling. And this is why you say, you know, if you're going to go out in the eye, fine. But you got to remember that the backside's going to come back around. And now the unfortunate part is we have a 9 to 13 feet storm surge potential here in Sarasota. And this is when the water starts getting pushed onshore. We've had an offshore flow here. It's been getting pushed and sucking water out of Tampa Bay. And now, as this storm, you know, goes counterclockwise, it is going to start pushing water into Sarasota Bay. We're about a mile from Sarasota Bay. Still not too crazy with the rain, but the winds have ramped up. We're getting these bursts of tropical storm force gusts. I think we had a hurricane force gust in Sarasota Airport, SRQ, 96 miles per hour when we were reporting in the eye of the storm, the eye wall of the storm as it came through. Now we're here in a neighborhood just outside of downtown Sarasota. One sec. Yep. All of those flashes that you see, that's not lightning, those are transformers exploding. And I've got a block construction building to my right, and the building that I'm in is actually blocking everything that's coming in. So whatever's going to fly over is going to clear this 2-story building, and it's going to go right over my head. So we know we're okay to be out here reporting. We are probably going to get some hurricane force gusts here where we are. You know, you can tell where we're at. We're at a nice place. Obviously they have a pool. I know people have been talking about draining their pools. I actually had to drain the pool here at the Airbnb because it started to flood over the top. So I went over to the pump, I drained it out, and then we turned it off. And so, I mean, that's good because, you know, you don't want that overflowing into your house. That's just as bad as localized flooding, freshwater flooding. So yeah, what a weird thing to have this thing just spin around after being so calm. You guys saw our report maybe 45 minutes to an hour ago, and now we're gonna get out in it. Let me just see what we got cooking over here, just so you can kind of get a perspective of where we are. So we're in a neighborhood, Sarasota, and you can see these trees here. Everything is blowing now behind me to the northwest. There's a shed over there that the roof blew off. There's a house in the front of the yard where the roof blew off. So whatever was impacted earlier by the winds that were coming from the east, now whatever was loose and is compromised is now going to potentially be hammered from the northwest. So that's why you got to know this thing runs counterclockwise. So yeah, we're gonna try to get reset, figured out this situation because we kind of just jumped out here. I'll get my photographer Reed Moeller on the tripod, and then you guys can come back to us. But I think we're going to be in this for maybe the next hour or so. Oh, huge explosion, huge explosion. The good thing is we're not, see all the debris around me. The good news is we're not hearing anything hammer our roof or our window anymore. When it was coming in behind me over the top, we were getting hammered with debris. So that's why we were in the front yard. I think this is probably the safest place that we can report from right now and probably be out in it for a long time, because I'll just show you this house here. That is a block construction. So we're blocked but with the wind by that. And then if Reed just sort of pans around towards me, we'll just sort of show you this real quick and then we'll send it back. But this house, it's sturdy and everything is basically going that way. So we're going to keep reporting. The big issue here, I think, this wind's going to die down. And then as the high tide comes in, it's the surge. The surge is going to wipe people out. And that is horrific and heartbreaking. And that's what we're looking at now. So don't think because it was calm earlier that it's calm now. You're going to realize it flips on and it just starts howling and it just keeps going. So I know tomorrow morning when we get up, we're going to see some awful images and people are going to be waking up to a lot of damage and people are going to lose a lot of stuff. But as long as you stay safe, you keep your life, your stuff can be replaced, put it in a dumpster, send it to the landfill, you're good to go. For now, we're live here in Sarasota. Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.
All right, Michael, thank you. I actually have, again, been receiving quite a few emails from viewers out there asking me questions I simply cannot answer because they're weather related. I've gotten several emails from Pasco County folks, especially in Wesley Chapel and areas that are more inland.